Chapter 770. Wang Ling had already received Audiobook's message. As Wang Ling had expected, Wang Ming's safety hadn't been compromised, and he had successfully escaped the Dead Sea of Space. Not only that, Wang Ming hadn't even used the life talisman that he had set up. In other words, Wang Ming had relied purely on his own abilities to escape this time. In some ways, Wang Ming was indeed an amazing man. It was no wonder that Jai Yin liked him. It was said that Jai Yin had yet to recover from her shock and was filled with grief and self-blame. After this morning's observation and cultivation of spirit plants, Wang Ling happened to pass by Jai Yin's room and saw her reporting to President Qi. There were clear tear stains on her face, and she was a little choked up when she spoke. Old Qi, if something really has happened to Wang Ming. President Qi was scared out of his wits when he heard this. There's still plenty of time. Besides, there's still no direct evidence of Wang Ming's death. Now, the official conclusion is that they have lost contact. Everything has not been determined yet. Don't take things too hard. Old Qi had always known that Jai Yin had special feelings for Wang Ming. Back then, when he had applied for a guard for Wang Ming from Magnificent Immortal, Jai Yin had been the first to raise his hand. Furthermore, at the time, Jai Yin had been the guardian of Magnificent Immortal's depository of Buddhist texts. This was the most well-paid job in Magnificent Immortal, and the place that all the special forces dreamed of going. But at that time, Jai Yin had resolutely given up the opportunity to become Wang Ming's bodyguard. It was only later when old Qi read Jai Yin's file that he learned that Wang Ming and Jai Yin had met when they were very young. Unfortunately, Wang Ming already didn't recognize Jai Yin. Jai Yin had changed too much in the past few years. Jai Yin sighed. Old Qi, don't worry. I won't do anything. Hearing this, President Qi heaved a huge sigh of relief. That's good. I was afraid you'd take things too hard. There were so many good men in the world. Come to think of it. Doesn't Lil Ming have a younger brother? You can attack him. Wang Ling. Jai Yin took a deep breath. I'm not that kind of person, President Qi, ha ha ha. I know you're not, so I was just joking. In actual fact, Lil Ming is younger than you, so it's fine for you to fall in love with a younger man. Jai Yin knew that President Qi was deliberately changing the subject. Jai Yin, old Qi, I've already thought about it. If Wang Ming doesn't come back in the end, I'll resign and go to Nine Dragon Mountain to become Abbess Miju. President Qi coughed. So that's it, Jai Yin, you sound disappointed? No, I'm just worried that you'll do something stupid. President Qi comforted him. I heard that you haven't eaten anything all this time, so you should at least go and get some food. You can't go on like this. Jai Yin nodded. I understand, old Qi. I'll take care of myself. I'll cook something for myself later. You burned it for yourself? President Qi was stunned. What was the difference between that and poisoning yourself? Today's lunch was a little special. The cafeteria didn't cook. Instead, all the space was provided to the students of each school. After all the students were divided into different groups according to their schools, they used the knowledge they learned in the morning to cook the spirit herbs in their hands. This not only tested the students' understanding of the new knowledge of drug mutation, but it also trained the students' practical skills. The current era was no longer like the past, when every day was fraught with danger and all kinds of killings. It was relatively more harmonious and stable. Thus, more and more modern cultivators preferred to use food to nourish their bodies rather than refine elixirs to supplement themselves. On one hand, alchemy was a very complicated subject, and not all cultivators could master it. In addition, apart from high school schools that specialized in alchemy, most students would only come into contact with alchemy courses in university. However, the vast majority of children were still cultivating and growing up, and now that their families had the means, they couldn't avoid taking elixirs to supplement themselves. But elixirs were expensive, and no ordinary family could afford them. Even well-off families couldn't afford to take elixirs every day to supplement themselves, unless they were the daughter of a rich family like Lotus Sun, who came from an alchemy corporation. Naturally, this was another matter. And because of the high production cost of medicinal pills and the troublesome refining process, a very strange phenomenon was created. Most people would bring medicinal pills with them when they went to the wilderness for special training, but if they were cultivating in seclusion at home, more than 70% of cultivators would choose to use high-grade spirit plants and food ingredients to cook in order to nourish themselves. Furthermore, the absorption of food supplements was better than that of medicine supplements. A few years ago, there was a popular saying, "Learn how to cook with me." That was when food supplements were the most popular. Wang Ling was still in the same group as Little Peanut and the others, but when it came to cooking, this group was almost all muggles. As they gathered around the cooking table, Super Chin stared at the ingredients in front of him, lost in deep thought. How about it? Does anyone know how to make it? The most delicious dish he had ever made in his life was instant noodles. Furthermore, he could make them in 100 different flavors using braised beef. This was the highest level of instant noodles. But this kind of skill wasn't enough at all here. I've only helped my mom at home. I can make soup, but cooking is a little difficult. Little Peanut also frowned, then looked at Hero Guo next to him. You should know how to do it, right? Dopey Guo was also very helpless. I only cook for spirit beasts, humans, probably won't be able to eat it. Then what about Wang Ling? Forget about Wang Ling, he doesn't look like he knows how to cook. Look at his hands, his skin is as smooth and tender as a girl's. Wang Ling, alright, then we don't need to worry about Wang Ling, question mark. Then let's analyze the ingredients first. Little Peanut, the spirit plant we're going to process now is called wind battle grass. Teacher said before that this kind of grass can grow 300 times faster in a storm. It's poisonous at room temperature, so it has to be cooked at a high temperature. They nodded. After the end of the Great Battle Chi era, this wind battle grass was the only spirit plant that could capture a trace of battle chi, and it had to be boiled at a high temperature. Back then, wind battle grass was an important tool for making the battle strength pill, which was specially used to restore battle chi. Back then, if you had enough battle chi, I heard that once you reached a certain realm, you could turn it into wings. Dopey Guo nodded. Not only could you turn it into wings, you could also turn it into a horse. Then let's call this dish, you say you? What about it? What do you think? Chapter 771. On the other side, Wang Ming was still leading his team to help His Majesty Beast King clear the game. The plot of Detroit, cultivation was very complicated, and each choice would affect the subsequent development of the plot. The story of the three main characters intertwined, and the player had to control a total of 3 characters. As one of the 3 main characters, Connor was just a character in one of the lines. The other 2 lines revolved around the family's male robot, Marcus, and the female robot, Kara. Sure enough, everything is as Little Silver thought. Beast King deliberately chose some strange answers to make the plot develop in a bad direction. He never intended to win from the beginning. After clearing the first part of the plot, Audiobook let out a sigh. It was very clear that if they were going to help Beast King clear the game, they absolutely couldn't use normal methods. The second part revolved around the family robot Kara and its male owner, Todd, as well as Todd's little girl, Alice. In the plot, because of the appearance of the intelligent android, Todd lost his original job, and because of this, Todd's wife left him. As a result, Todd became addicted to alcohol, abandoned himself to despair, and even started to take a new type of cheap drug, becoming abnormally irritable. Before the story began, Todd had gone to the Membrane Control Life store to pick up the bionic robot Kara, because 2 weeks ago, Todd had blown Kara up with his fists after taking drugs and had gone berserk. How do we clear this part of the plot? Should I continue to cross-dress? Fatty Luo asked. He didn't know why, but Fatty Luo seemed to be looking forward to cross-dressing now. Little Silver was so frightened that he trembled. No, he had been so frightened by Fatty Luo's cross-dressing appearance earlier that it was really too painful to look at. It was even more painful than Kuxuan cross-dressing. At the very least, Kuxuan cross-dressing was pretty bearable. Fatty Luo couldn't do it at all. The proof was that he was a silver sect master on the fan rankings. Kuchuan cross-dressing was so cute. This ID was so honest. I just downloaded and analyzed the entire plot of the game from the internet. The main point of the plot is that Todd will abuse the little girl after taking drugs. Kara disobeyed Todd's order to not touch and resolutely went to protect Todd's daughter, Alice. In the end, he resisted and escaped from Todd's house with Alice. Wang Ming said, the main point of this plot is that both of them have to get out alive. At the same time, they have to be careful not to kill Todd in the process of resisting, otherwise public opinion of the android in the game's plot will drop, and the final outcome won't be too good. Then what should we do? Little Silver asked. That's easy, Wang Ming said. When resisting domestic violence, Kara can choose to kill Todd with a weapon. Little Silver, if it was His Majesty Beast King, he would definitely choose this, Wang Ming chuckled. So I replaced the weapon in this plot with one that had almost no lethality. To put it bluntly, as long as they could trap the NPC Todd, but not kill him, they would be able to kill him. After that, let Kara escape with the little girl, and the plot will develop towards a good ending. What's the replacement weapon? Unbreakable Love's Seven Heavens Lock. It's a magical treasure that can trap people firmly after use. It can trap people but won't kill them. It's elegant but doesn't lose its charm. Because Wang Ming had relied on technical means to hack into Beast King's game world, Beast King himself hadn't been aware of their infiltration. But as these magically altered plots continued to appear, Little Silver was very worried that Beast King would eventually sense it. Beast King initially thought that these changes in the plot were related to the game's latest update, but the more the plot developed, the more he felt that there seemed to be a lot of unreasonable parts in the entire plot. There was no way the previous plot could jump so far. Thus, when it came to the third plot about the last of the three game protagonists, Marcus, Beast King finally realized the problem. He deliberately didn't trigger the next mission, and instead manipulated the Marcus character to stare at the air next to him. Beast King's intuition allowed him to almost immediately detect where Wang Ming and the others were. I know you're next to me. Since you're here, then come out. There's no need to hide anymore. Beast King's voice was very low, but it carried enormous mental pressure as it pressed down on Wang Ming and the others. So strong. Little Silver exclaimed. I'll hold them off. To everyone's surprise, Audiobook actually took the lead and stood at the very front. You can't hold on with your realm, can you? It has nothing to do with realm. Audiobook shook his head. I have long johns. Everyone looked as if they were suddenly enlightened, as if they were used to this. Wang Ming sighed deeply. It looked like this Audiobook, as the disciple of his stupid Ududu, was indeed his true love. There was no one else who would actually wear long johns all the time. But with regards to the long johns and long johns, this incident had indeed taught Wang Ming a lesson. The next time he went out for an activity, he felt that it would be more reliable to wear them, otherwise, he wouldn't have been so embarrassed when he encountered danger like this. Since Beast King had already sensed them, Wang Ming and the others didn't intend to continue hiding, and directly revealed themselves. Enormous mental pressure poured down on everyone, like a huge wave swept up by Typhoon Mangosteen. Everyone felt the pressure on their shoulders, and even rolling their eyelids felt extremely strenuous. But after Audiobook took the lead and stood at the front, a lot of this pressure was instantly lifted. Beast King stared at Audiobook in indescribable amazement. This young man was clearly only at the Golden Core stage, but he could single-handedly share the mental pressure in the game world? No, this definitely wasn't the young man's own strength. Beast King had already sensed that something wasn't right, and he manipulated his character, Marcus. The next moment, his eyes turned the color of flowing gold, and his pupils gave off a holy brilliance as white as jade. Holy King Eye. This was the second time Little Silver had seen Beast King's Holy King Eye. The first time had been at the Holy Beast Festival, which was held every 100 years as a child. Little Master. Be careful. Little Silver warned Audiobook. In the next instant, Beast King's hand was already reaching for Audiobook. Chapter 772. There was no need to doubt the strength of Beast King's palm. This grab was just a test, and Audiobook stood at the very front, doing his best to withstand the powerful wind pressure caused by the falling palm. The result was as expected. Just as Beast King's palm was about to reach Audiobook, a golden light was released from the long johns Audiobook was wearing and repelled Beast King's palm. The sacred Beast King frowned and looked at his palm. This golden light made his hand go numb, and it hurt like chili oil had been smeared on his palm. Although it wasn't sharp, it was very persistent, as if it was a warning to him that it was best not to try to get any closer. That was right, this was the aura of heavenly Tao. Beast King narrowed his eyes and didn't choose to attack again. Instead, he looked deeply at Audiobook in front of him. Who are you? At the same time, he also noticed Little Silver in the crowd. Although Little Silver was still in human form, Beast King was confident that he couldn't be wrong about the strong aura of holy beast blood that Little Silver gave off. There was actually still a living holy beast. Devil King's face was cloudy, and it was impossible to tell whether it was sad or happy. We're very sorry to interrupt your Majesty's game, but the purpose of our trip is to have a good talk with your Majesty, Wang Ming said. There's nothing to talk about. If there's nothing else, please leave. Don't disturb my game, Devil King directly refused. It looks like your Majesty is worried about something, Wang Ming said again. Devil King turned his head and raised his eyelids at Wang Ming with great interest. He could see that this was just a human who didn't have the slightest hint of spirit energy on him, but he could guess what the other party was thinking. You can read minds? Devil King was skeptical. Wang Ming smiled. Of course. He thought that this was simply nonsense. Now that they had snuck into Beast King's game world, it was equivalent to invading his mind, so Wang Ming could use his mind to explore some of Beast King's shallow memories. After the holy beasts were exterminated, Devil King had gone into seclusion for 1,000 years, and had no idea that the combination of cultivation and science in the outside world had already reached such an unfathomable level. But this was Wang Ming. A scientific cultivation magic artifact made by an average person might not be as practical as Wang Ming's. Devil King's interest in Wang Ming was piqued, and he seemed to have become a little more patient. Then, what do you want to know? Lord Beast King knows very well what we want to know. Wang Ming quickly replied, looking at His Majesty Beast King's expression, you should already be aware that there is still a surviving holy beast in our ranks. Doesn't His Majesty Beast King have something to say? I didn't expect that there would be a holy beast that survived the calamity back then. I remember that the silver-horned beast clan was the last clan to go extinct. To think that their descendants still exist. This year, someone has finally offered incense to the graves of the silver-horned beasts. Little Silver, however, at the mention of what happened back then, the Devil King's expression became a little ugly. I know you want to ask about the specific reason behind the extinction of the holy beasts back then. However, no matter who acted, they couldn't do anything about it. Our holy beast race was destined to face this calamity. It was unavoidable. Sure enough, it wasn't as simple as he had imagined. Hearing Devil King's words, everyone in the field pondered in their hearts. In the outside world, the official conclusion was that President Bai had instigated rumors back then, falsely claiming that the blood and hearts of holy beasts had a powerful nourishing effect and could help cultivators comprehend the power of heavenly Tao. Thus, holy beasts had been hunted and killed on a large scale back then. President Bai had also taken advantage of the chaos to achieve his goal, which was to create the Wuji umbrella, this powerful spatial magic artifact. Listening to the Devil King's tone, he had probably known long ago that the holy beast race would be wiped out, but perhaps for some reason, he hadn't been able to do anything to stop it. That was why he had shut himself in this game. Wang Ming guessed that Qin Lang only knew a little about this matter. There was another reason why Devil King had shut himself in this game, and it wasn't simply because he was autistic or because he didn't want to come out. You can't defy fate. Defying heavenly Tao will never end well. After a long while, the Devil King heaved a long sigh. All along, His Majesty Beast King has been thinking of a solution on his own. If you share your worries with us, it might not necessarily end badly, Wang Ming comforted him. You can't defy fate, and even more so heavenly Tao. Wang Ling had told him about this a long time ago. Although he hadn't truly come into contact with Heavenly Tao, Wang Ming actually didn't know any less about it than a real cultivator. It was true that Heavenly Tao was terrifying. But he had Wang Ling. Devil King glanced at Wang Ming, then stared at the sky with the Holy King Eye, where a crack had actually appeared out of thin air. A 5-colored glass box slowly spat out from the crack. This is... Wang Ming frowned. Wang Ling was telling him that this box was very dangerous. Heavenly Tao treasure box. Devil King said, back then, it was the Almighty Senior who gave me the box that told me that the Holy Beast race was bound to be wiped out. Someone looked for His Majesty Beast King? That's right. Devil King nodded. That senior was extremely powerful. He and I weren't in the same dimension at all. Everyone was stupefied at these words. Not in the same dimension at all, the strongest realm in the outside world now was 9th level true immortal. Above that was venerated immortal. Beast King's strength was equivalent to that of a venerated immortal. If the person who had given Beast King the Heavenly Tao treasure box was even more powerful, it seemed that this person was indeed an expert. But Devil King was a little speechless at the reactions of Wang Ming and the others. This bunch of people were clearly weaklings, but after hearing his story, they actually didn't react at all. That was a super expert who far surpassed venerated immortals. I said that this person's strength wasn't in the same dimension as mine, aren't you surprised? This time, Devil King was truly alarmed. Had he run into a bunch of fools? Oh, Wang Ming and the others nodded cooperatively, their faces unruffled. If it's really as His Majesty Beast King says, then it's really shocking. Very scary. Devil King, after all, everyone here had witnessed Wang Ling's extraordinary abilities. So when Devil King told them about the Almighty's past, they were already as calm as usual. Devil King rubbed his head, feeling a headache coming on. Back then, that senior told me that the extinction of the holy beasts was inevitable and unchangeable. The only thing that could be done was to salvage the situation. He gave me the Heavenly Tao treasure box and told me that as long as I could unlock its secret, there was still a chance that the holy beast race would be reborn after it was wiped out. I've been immersed in this game all these years precisely because I was following the senior's knowledge and looking for the password to unlock the treasure box. Chapter 773. This Heavenly Tao treasure box is made of a special material. I've already broken it many times, but it's still unscathed. It can't be destroyed at all. Devil King shook his head. As Devil King had said, the Heavenly Tao treasure box contained the secret to resurrecting the extinct holy beast race. This was enough to prove that the thing hidden in the Heavenly Tao treasure box had the power to defy the heavens and change fate, so it naturally wouldn't be easy to open it. In order to open the treasure box, Devil King had painstakingly searched for the password and used his knowledge of the Heavenly Tao to find clues in this designated game. Naturally, it wasn't that easy to open the treasure box. The password can be entered countless times, but I don't know how long it is. I've tried hundreds of millions of permutations over the last 1,000 years, but I haven't succeeded in cracking it. Devil King sighed with a despairing expression on his face. Have you tried GCM? Wang Ming asked. Devil King quickly searched through his memories, then replied, I tried this permutation on the 145,236th time. It's not right. Everyone, it was over, this password wasn't right. It looked like cracking the Heavenly Tao treasure box was more complicated than they had imagined. Is it a mix of numbers and English? Wang Ming asked. Not necessarily. There might be Chinese or Western cultivation runes, Devil King said. But in all these years of exploring the game world, I haven't been able to crack the complete clue, but I can more or less confirm that this password is made up of English, numbers, and Chinese cultivation runes. Then how long will it take to crack it? Little Silver's face was already a little despairing. He couldn't help but think of the story of Fengxian Prefecture in Journey to the West, where the prefectural governor offended the celestial emperor and was punished with a drought. Only after the chicken ate the rice mountain, the dog licked the flower mountain, and the candle burned through the golden lock would it rain. In some sense, the celestial emperor in this story was deliberately making things difficult, which was no different from the problem posed by the person who had given him this box. If it was just a combination of numbers and English, Devil King might have already cracked it long ago, but there were actually cultivation runes interspersed in it. If he continued to crack it like this, he might not be able to crack it even after 10,000 years. Mr. Beast King, can you describe in detail the appearance of the person who provided this heavenly Tao treasure box? Jua asked. Devil King carefully recalled, at that time, that Senior was wrapped up very tightly. He came prepared. The material of the Daoist robe he's wearing is something I've never seen before. My Devil Valley has collected all the resources in this world, but I can't tell what material the Daoist robe is made of. When Devil King said this, Jua and Little Silver suddenly thought of the girl in ancient clothes, whom Wang Ling had rescued from the Kuan's belly back then. She was still in a severe coma and was being treated at Immortal Toya's place. The Daoist robe she was wearing was made of a material that she had never seen before. Both Jua and Little Silver wondered if there was a connection between the two. Do you have a specific appearance? Wang Ming asked. No. Devil King shook his head. That Senior didn't want me to see his face clearly. That Daoist robe covered his entire body. His face, upper body, and lower body were all covered. Even when I used the Sacred King's Eye to look at him, I felt like I was in deep myopia. The only thing I can confirm is the look in this Senior's eyes. What kind of expression is that? Everyone's curiosity was piqued. This Senior has dead fish eyes, said Devil King. Everyone? At Night Chief's headquarters, President Bai took another screenshot, and his grand plan to revive his soul had begun. After imprisoning Night Ghost Spirit Emperor in the Soul Warehouse, he directly revealed his identity to everyone here. He was Bai Zhe, President Bai of Night Chief. Not Night Ghost Spirit Emperor. Everyone who disobeyed him had to die. Now that he had obtained Night Ghost Spirit Emperor's body, President Bai had a 9th-class true immortal body. Combined with the creation spell, his terrifying regenerative ability reached unprecedented heights. As Night Ghost Spirit Emperor had said, President Bai was ambitious. He wasn't willing to spend the rest of his life under someone else's control. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor had in fact already been on guard against this. At first, when President Bai had sought out Wang Ling for revenge, Night Ghost Spirit Emperor had deliberately not organized a fight, which was the best proof. Night Ghost Spirit Emperor's heart was as clear as a mirror. It was impossible for President Bai to be that youngster's match. He had wanted to use someone else to do his dirty work and get rid of President Bai, who was a major internal threat. He hadn't thought that in the end, he would still be one step behind, and the other party would use the hidden power of Outer Dao to seize this opportunity to counterattack. Any new developments? Sitting on the throne inside Night Chief, President Bai propped his head in one hand and stared at the rows of technicians in front of him as he spoke in a low voice. He was investigating everything related to Wang Ling, even if there was no photo, even if there was only the slightest clue. He wanted to find everyone related to Wang Ling, family, friends, and then carry out a full-scale retaliation. Even if he succeeded in getting revenge on someone, it wouldn't be the most painful. He wanted that youngster to sink into an even deeper level of pain. We already have. Lord Night Ghost Spirit Emperor, replied an intelligence technician in front of him. But as soon as the words left his mouth, his expression abruptly changed. He realized that he had said the wrong thing. President Bai had already made it clear before that he wasn't Night Ghost Spirit Emperor anymore, but should be called Venerable White. But because of his long-term habit, this poor intelligence technician still couldn't correct himself the instant he said it, and made a slip of the tongue. Almost in an instant, the entire Night Chief HQ was enveloped in a low pressure. I'll say it again. I'm called Venerable White, President Bai muttered to himself. With just a curl of his finger, a spatial rift suddenly appeared where the technician who had called out the wrong name was. His head was instantly swallowed by the rift. However, at the next moment, a golden vortex appeared at the spot where the technician's head was severed, and the head that had been severed returned to his body. After being resurrected, the technician turned pale with panic. He touched his neck. There wasn't the slightest crack, and everything was as good as before. But just now, it had all been like a dream. He had thought he was going to die, but then he had come back to life. It's too noisy to execute someone for such a small matter. By Ja. As the technician came back to life, a very youthful voice rang out in the air. This voice instantly made President Bai stand up from his throne. There was no mistaking it, this was Lord Dao Master's voice. Chapter 774. Before the person arrived, the voice arrived first. President Bai couldn't be more familiar with this type of great Dao telepathy. After he got up, he bowed in a certain direction in the air, not daring to be the slightest bit disrespectful. The next moment, a man dressed in black ancient clothes stepped out of the void. The black ancient robe was a full-length robe that completely covered his face. The night chief technicians around him were so frightened that they all got up and bowed. Some of them peered at this senior with their eyes, but unfortunately, they felt that their vision was obscured by a layer of mist and was abnormally blurry. The man stepped out of the air. He didn't do anything, he just stood there, but there was a great majesty about him. The entire air, no, the entire firmament seemed to revolve around him, and his every movement was filled with heavenly might. President Bai was inexplicably alarmed. Lord Dao Master, why are you here? No man is a saint, and everyone makes mistakes. Since it was an unintentional mistake, you should be more forgiving. The man said lightly as he slowly walked over to President Bai's side. President Bai didn't even dare raise his head. President Bai, Lord Dao Master is right. Then, the man directly took President Bai's place and sat down on the throne, then exhaled softly. This exhalation made everyone feel like they were bathed in a spring breeze. All of a sudden, everyone here, including President Bai, felt the pressure on them loosen, and they didn't seem so nervous anymore. On the side, Night Chief's third president, Insect Envoy Long Ming, was also secretly shocked. What a big tone, this was a true expert who could actually control pressure so freely, giving off the feeling that the power of heavenly Tao was both benevolent and menacing. When President Bai had returned from the dead and returned to his position, fourth and fifth president, including Long Ming, had been wondering who on earth President Bai's backer was. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, Long Ming's cheeks already couldn't help sweating. It was a good thing he hadn't taken things too seriously and dragged fourth and fifth president along to resist President Bai's hegemony, otherwise he probably wouldn't even have a place to collect his corpse. As an insect envoy, Long Ming had an extremely strong perception ability. The cultivation technique he cultivated was called the Jade Insect Technique, and after cultivating it, he could possess the abilities of all kinds of insects. Many insects had an innate advantage in sensing danger. Long Ming could clearly feel that with his strength, this man could kill him like an ant with just a finger. Although this man looked refined and easygoing, he was a truly dangerous person. Furthermore, he had just heard what President Bai had called this man, Dao Master. Above rank 9 true immortal was the immortal exalted realm. What was the realm of Dao Master? Long Ming admitted that he had never heard of it. There was actually such a person in this world? It wasn't just Long Ming, everyone else present here was extremely shocked as well. 1,000 years ago, I divined that you would have a battle with that thief, so I placed a heavy bet on you. I helped you up. But I've never taught you to kill the innocent. I hope that you'd better be careful in the future. You've only obtained an outer Tao. If the heavenly Tao wants to destroy you, it'll only take a moment, the man said telepathically as he looked at President Bai from the throne. These were extremely cold dead fish eyes, which made President Bai tremble all over. Yes. Your Excellency Tao Master. President Bai didn't dare refute him at all. The difference in their strength was too great. Not to mention that they weren't in the same dimension, this strength wasn't in the same universe at all. I came to find you this time because I already divined your movements, and also wanted to ask you how you felt when you exchanged blows with that thief, the man asked telepathically. In reply to Your Excellency Tao Master, as Your Excellency Tao Master said, this person is a very difficult opponent. Furthermore, when he fought me, he already revealed no less than 1,000 heavenly Tao. 1,000 heavenly Tao. The man clenched his teeth and his hand instantly clenched into a fist as he smashed the armrest of the throne. As expected, it's him. Then what's your next plan? Junior wants to gather the power of Outer Tao and get revenge on him, President Bai said honestly. Unless you're the sixth great Outer Tao, you won't be his match at all. His strength isn't limited to this. The man didn't go on. Junior has a question, but I don't know if I should ask. At that moment, President Bai raised his head. I know what you want to ask. The man waved his hand. What you want to ask is, what on earth did this person steal from me? Yes or no? President Bai nodded. As expected, Your Excellency Tao Master's foresight is miraculous. Now that things have come to this point, there's no harm in telling you a little. The man narrowed his eyes. There is a domain of the gods in this world called Ninefold Star. Far beyond the Milky Way, in the center of the entire universe, it is a place where heavenly Tao practitioners gather. It was founded by the Tao Master who first comprehended 500 heavenly Tao. Children born on Ninefold Star now have at least 5 heavenly Tao. President Bai was astonished. There's actually such a place. Given your current realm, you're a lofty 9th class true immortal in your world, but on Ninefold Star, you're just a commoner in comparison. The man waved his hand and smiled slightly. In your world, apart from that thief whom I'm now painstakingly pursuing, the person closest to Ninefold Star is that immortal Jinyuan. I calculate that this person might be able to surpass his limits and ascend to Ninefold Star in his lifetime. Immortal Jinyuan, President Bai heard another familiar name. Then, according to Senior, the realm above venerated immortal is, above venerated immortal, the number of heavenly Tao is the limit. Above 100 heavenly Tao and below 500 heavenly Tao are Tao immortals. Above 500 heavenly Tao and below 1000 heavenly Tao are Tao masters. If you can cultivate 3000 heavenly Tao, you'll be a Tao ancestor. Hearing this, President Bai already understood a little. Then the thief Senior speaks of, could it be that what he stole was Senior's heavenly Tao? That's right. The man sighed. If I can take back his heavenly Tao, it's very likely that I'll become a Tao ancestor. Unfortunately, it looks like relying on heavenly Tao alone is far from enough to deal with him. Heavenly Tao and Outer Tao aren't compatible, which is why I chose you to master Outer Tao. Although President Bai didn't understand the connection between heavenly Tao and Outer Tao, he was still very surprised. Is there anyone in this world who is compatible? Such a person doesn't exist, unless it's the founder of our Ninefold Star, Tao ancestor Wang, known as the Immortal King. This person once merged heavenly Tao and Outer Tao, but unfortunately, he was unable to balance the power of the two Tao, and died as a result of them tearing at each other. Chapter 775. Tao Master Wang's appearance wasn't a coincidence. In fact, when that Kuan belly girl had first appeared, Wang Ling had already sensed that someone was looking for him. Moreover, the person who was looking for him was definitely powerful. At the very least, he had never seen such a person among all the people he had come into contact with so far. At Night Chief's headquarters, Tao Master Wang sat on the throne. With just a brief look at President Bai, he already knew what the latter was thinking. Contrary to President Bai's expectations, Tao Master Wang's next words directly shattered his grand plan for revenge. You want revenge, and I want to capture the thief. This is a great thing that will bring both of us together. There's no need to involve others, Venerable Wang said. He had repeatedly descended from the Ninefold Star, using the excuse of inspection to search for the thief who had stolen his heavenly Tao number. All of his actions had to be kept secret. It was for this reason that Tao Master Wang had developed his number 1 pawn in the world below, President Bai. This chess piece had to be under his control. If he went overboard and left the chessboard, it would be bad if someone on the Ninefold Star impeached him. Wang Jun considered himself a cautious person. In the face of this powerful Tao Master Wang, President Bai was completely infuriated, but didn't dare say anything. After all, there was a huge gap between their strengths. Wang Jun could see the unwillingness in Baijia's heart, so he cast a sidelong glance at Baijia and said indifferently, if you want to inherit the complete power of the Outer Tao, you must be free of distracting thoughts. Otherwise, the 6 great outer Taoists won't be compatible, and you'll be the first to suffer. This is for your own good. President Bai was dazed, completely unaware of the connection between having a clear mind and comprehending outer Tao. One of them was going to take revenge, and the other was going to catch the thief. After talking for so long, they were actually people with distracting thoughts. However, Bai Zhou was not a fool. He could see that Tao Master Wang had some concerns. Ninefold Star was known as the god's domain. It must have been inconvenient for Venerable Tao Wang to go down to the lower realm to capture the bandits, which was why he had taken a fancy to him. Thus, Bai Zhou only thought about it for a moment before quickly agreeing, Tao's sovereign Wang is right. This junior will remember it. Before borrowing the power of Tao Lord Wang to obtain the true perfect power of outer Tao, he could endure for a while. Now that he had Tao Lord Wang to back him up, he could endure it for a while. Revenge was only a matter of time. As long as you listen to me, you won't suffer any losses. When Bai Zhou raised his head again, he heard Tao Master Wang Zhen's indifferent voice. It was very ethereal, and seemed to ring out from all directions around Bai Zhou at the same time. Your talent isn't weak, but even so, you won't be able to touch the domain of divinity for the rest of your life. Therefore, risking your life to gather the 6 heretics is your only way out. However, you must remember this. You must be patient and not the slightest bit noisy. I've seen too many young people like you. They were all geniuses with great potential, but because they were too anxious, they ended up making mistakes. Whether it's the heavenly Tao or the heretic Tao, when facing the power of these laws, we need to be respectful. He could tell that Bai Zhou was a very impatient person. If he didn't explain things clearly now, there was an 80 to 90% chance that something unexpected would happen in the future. Bai Zhou fell silent. He wasn't a person who liked to listen to reason, but under Tao Master Wang's patient guidance, he felt like he had calmed down a lot, which was very strange. In fact, this was because when Wang Zhen had opened his mouth earlier, he had cast the great calming spell. This spell could forcibly restore a person's emotions to a normal level. It didn't matter if you were sad, angry, or full of lust. As long as this spell was used, your emotions would return to normal. Even if you had been drugged with a strong knockout drug, it would still be useless in the end. Then does Tao Master Wang have a plan? Bai Zhou raised his head and looked at Wang Zhen respectfully. Of course I do. Wang Zhen nodded. There's a time limit for me to inspect the world below, but when I was in the world above, I was constantly investigating and exploring. Recently, I got some new inspiration from the new cooks my family hired. Cooks? That's right, the 2 new cooks are brothers called the Flower Farmer Brothers. They used to farm on the outskirts of Ninefold Star, and were famous for raising spirit rats. Furthermore, they'll find different excuses to eat these spirit rats that have fought, become fat, depressed, beautiful, or in heat. They'll braise them, fry them, cook them, there's no evil they won't do. No evil, won't do? That's exactly what I saw in them. That's why I hired them with a lot of money. I also spent a lot of money to help them publish a book called 100 Million Ways to Cook Spirit Rats. If you're interested, I can bring it over for you to take a look. Whether it's in the world below or the world above, nourishing food is popular now, so learning some cooking methods is actually beneficial and harmless. Bai Zhou, sorry. I digressed. When Tao Master Wang said this, he seemed to feel that he had deviated a little from the main topic, so he hurriedly changed the subject. Later, when I hired the 2 brothers, I found out that their ancestors had been raising vicious beasts. Unfortunately, their family declined and they couldn't afford the huge cost of raising vicious beasts, so they sold the farm and settled for the next best thing, which was raising spirit rats. When I found out, I took over a vicious beast farm. I gave it to them to raise. What are they raising? They're raising Kuan. In order to cooperate with the 2 brothers raising Kuan, I also specially named this fishery Golden Kuan Farm, and hired an experienced farm director, nicknamed Full Metal Shell. Bai Zhou was surprised. He always felt that this name seemed a little familiar. After that, I used the two brothers' Kun raising skills to start a business selling Kun. And the effect was not bad. The net profit in the first quarter was more than 10 billion. Of course, there were also unexpected situations when raising Kun. In the beginning, some bad breeds of Kun were prone to fighting and killing each other because of mating problems. However, these situations were effectively improved after the intervention of the flower farmer brothers. All the Kun that fought were eaten like those spirit rats before. Chapter 776. A completely new result? That's right. Wang Zhen nodded. In addition to finding what I wanted, my venerable self also discovered a new species of Kun called the void Kun through this void probe. This Kun tastes like vegetables, and is also called vegetable Kun or vegetable void Kun. President Bai was secretly alarmed when he heard this story. Prehistoric vicious beasts were a species that had been extinct on Earth a long time ago, but now lived in large numbers in the world above, and someone had even set up a Kun farm for them. As the saying went, a Kun was so big that it couldn't be contained in one pot. The meat smelled like wax, so it was better to sprinkle salt on it and make it into peppers. This was a very famous short poem which mainly talked about the taste of Kun meat described by an almighty who had eaten it before. It was precisely because of this poem that most people knew that Kun meat wasn't delicious. Kun weren't delicious, but in fact, that was just because they had chosen the wrong species. Because according to Tao Master Wang, there were many different species of Kun, and the Kun he used to fish and explore the space were all extremely poor quality and naturally mutated rotten Kun species. What do you mean, Tao Master Wang? My venerable self has already confirmed the location of the thief, and I plan to capture him in a few days. Wang Zhen took a deep breath. He had been searching for the thief who had stolen his heavenly Tao for a long time. He had even disregarded his family's opposition. All these years on Ninefold Star, he had been unrivaled in the world, but had only lost to one person. The reason for this was that he had too few heavenly Tao. As long as he could take back the heavenly Tao that belonged to him, he would at least be able to fight that man to a draw. Saying this, Wang Zhen raised his hand, and a ball of blue-green light appeared in it. Instantly, it was as if the entire Night Chief HQ was enveloped in a comfortable and peaceful atmosphere, as if the power of nature was being nurtured in Wang Zhen's hand. He was like a man who controlled the laws of nature. It was just a small ball of light, but it seemed to contain the godly power of nature. A few seconds later, this ball of spirit light spread out in the air to form a map with several light spots marked on it. Tao Master Wang, this is. When I used the inferior Kun to penetrate through space to probe, I also found some possible locations where the power of outer Tao might appear for you. You have to collect and comprehend the power of outer Tao on your own. They are the only natural laws that can take physical form. You have to find them and subdue them one by one. However, there are a lot of places marked on the map. You should calm down and look for them slowly. Thank you, Tao Master Wang. This junior understands, President Bai said. Then, with a wave of his hand, Wang Zhen tossed several marble-like magic artifacts to President Bai. These are nomological capture balls. There's a button in the center of each bead, and when you touch it, the magic ball will expand. You need to use these magic balls to capture them. The 6 great outer Taos were like the 5 elements, each having their own counter. You've already mastered one of the most special techniques, the reverse polarity technique. You don't need me to remind you what to do next, do you? Of course, this junior won't let your excellency Tao Master down. President Bai was overjoyed. As Wang Zhen said, what he had to do next was naturally to snowball with the outer Tao in his hands. The powers of outer Tao each had their own counter. As long as he could successfully collect 2 outer Tao, the other 4 would naturally be under his control. In the end, it was just a matter of time, just be more careful. Patience, patience, more patience. I have nothing else to say. Wang Zhen sighed. To be honest, Wang Zhen was skeptical about whether Baizhi could collect all 6 great outer Tao. Although he had already found a lead on Wang Ling, for some reason, he had a bad feeling about this. But he didn't dare directly return to Ninefold Star in the short term. Even if he couldn't completely carry out his plan on Earth, he still had to take a stroll outside the Milky Way first. Wang Zhen raised his head and stared in one direction in the sky. That was where he had been. At that moment, he could more or less guess that the Lu family on Ninefold Star was looking for him everywhere. Currently, the Lu family was ranked third on Ninefold Star. In order to contend with the Gu family, which was firmly in first place, Wang Zhen's father had thought of a way for him to form a marriage alliance with the Lu family. The problem was that Wang Zhen didn't like Miss Lu of the Lu family. Thus, although he had found clues about Wang Ling in the world below this time, Wang Zhen wasn't really planning on dealing with him. Before Baizha had completely collected the power of Outer Dao, Wang Zhen planned to wait and see for a while longer. After Baizha gathered his forces and forced the thief to use all his strength, Wang Zhen would then consider whether or not to make a move. So, Wang Zhen's real purpose in coming to the world below this time, it was obviously to find the thief. In fact, it was to escape marriage. Elsewhere, in Beast King's tomb, everyone was still studying how to open the Heavenly Dao treasure box. As Devil King had said, the password to open the Heavenly Dao treasure box was more complicated than they had imagined. If they continued to decipher it like this, even if they worked together for 10,000 years, they still wouldn't be able to do it. So in the end, their only hope was to find a way to destroy this Heavenly Dao treasure box by force. Let me try. In the end, Audiobook stared at the treasure box and sighed. You? Devil King was doubtful. Then, he saw Audiobook directly kneel down in the air. Lord Jinka, grant me strength. Seeing this, Little Silver and the others patted their heads. They had almost forgotten that in order to protect Audiobook, Wang Ling had already allowed him to summon Jinka when necessary, but only once a day. So when the brown spirit light directly penetrated the air in the distance and reached the tomb, and then directly penetrated the spiritual space, even Devil King couldn't help being startled. What kind of spirit sword was this? He couldn't see through it at all, and for some reason, the moment he saw this brown peachwood sword, Devil King actually had the misconception that he was looking at that senior who had given him the Heavenly Dao treasure box back then. What's the origin of this sword? Devil King asked. Little Silver could feel Beast King's voice trembling. As Jinka's #1 fan, Fatty Luo had the expression of a young girl seeing her idol. Ah! My Lord Jinka! Lord Jinka! Can you give me a good spanking after you're done with this Heavenly Dao treasure box? But Fatty Luo's words were directly ignored by everyone. This is my Shifu's personal spirit sword, Lord Jinka. Chapter 777. This was a sword that Beast King had never seen before. Devil King felt a deep sense of fear when he deduced its owner's identity from the spirit sword alone. He said this because he had indeed smelled the scent of this peachwood sword from somewhere before. Has your Majesty Beast King remembered something? Audiobook asked when he saw Devil King's pensive expression. Audiobook didn't know Jinka's background, but he was one of the few people who had experienced the heavy power of this peachwood sword on the spot. Back when he had faced the master of Immortal Mansion's intrinsic spirit field, Jinka had displayed the formidable fighting strength of the King of Sword Spirits. In the face of evil sword god, that world-annihilating sword had been even more frightening. Now that things had come to this, Devil King felt that he had nothing to hide. Because everything he had done had been for the sake of opening this Heavenly Dao treasure box. He had struggled bitterly in the game just to find some clues hidden inside. Now that he had seen hope once again in this mystical peachwood sword, it was as if he had suddenly seen some light in the darkness. I once personally sensed an aura that is very similar to the aura this Lord Jinka gives off, Devil King said calmly. I don't know if you've heard of a legendary place called the Domain of the Gods. For a moment, everyone fell into deep thought. Although Audiobook had witnessed a lot of major events in the last few months and had even personally captured a number of big shots, he was still too shallow compared with the people around him, so naturally he hadn't heard of it. Fatty Luo also confirmed this point. Fatty Luo had more than 800 years more cultivation experience than Audiobook, but this was the first time even he had heard of the Domain of the Gods. What is this place? Little Silver asked. When I was little, I seem to have seen it in my clan's Bible, but it didn't explain it in detail. As soon as Little Silver said this, Odd Joie and Fatty Luo looked over. The Holy Beast clan had long lifespans to begin with. Although this 8,000-year-old baby didn't look mature yet, he really knew a lot of things. Thus, there was indeed a reason why some cultivators painstakingly pursued the path of immortality. After living for a long time, one's experiences were indeed different. Domain of the gods. Legend says that as long as you reach a certain number of heavenly Tao, you can ascend to the domain of the gods. God domain? Is there really such a place? Wang Ming was skeptical. I once revealed the same doubtful expression as you, but after the 4th generation Beast King passed the position of Sacred Beast King to me, I dispelled this doubt. The domain of God does indeed exist. But it is far beyond the Milky Way, said Devil King. Wang Ming was suddenly enlightened by this explanation. If it was really outside the Milky Way, then there was really nothing to say. With the current level of science and technology, the exploration satellites launched from all over the world could only reach a position of about 100 light-years outside the Milky Way. In order to find Drought Star, Immortal Zhen Yuan had explored the Milky Way beyond the Milky Way for 1,000 years, but hadn't even covered 1/10 of the distance. A venerated immortal would have to live for at least 10,000 years to fly beyond the Milky Way. In order to find Drought Star, Immortal Zhen Yuan had gone back and forth, less than 1/10 of the distance, but it had taken him a whole 2,000 years. If the domain of gods really did exist, then could there be people like Wang Ling living there? Actually, this was what Wang Ming was most concerned about. On this trip to Beast King's tomb, Wang Ming felt that he had really profited. At the very least, he had one more thing to work on in his research on Wang Ling's primordial qi. As long as he could invent a magic treasure that could allow him to travel beyond the Milky Way and reach the domain of gods in his lifetime, perhaps he would be able to solve the problem of controlling Wang Ling's primordial qi. Rumor has it that the realm above venerated immortal is Tao immortal. But there are very strict requirements for the number of heavenly Tao. Even I'm not very clear on this point. Devil King shook his head. The power of the Sacred Beast King was passed down from generation to generation. Although it could be passed down through accumulation, after 4 generations of Beast Kings, Devil King's strength was currently only at venerated immortal level. Although he had more than 20 heavenly Tao on him, it was clear that he was still far from the standard of a Tao immortal. Is there a way to reach the domain of gods? Wang Ming continued to ask. This matter concerned Wang Ling, which made Wang Ming attach even more importance to it. The domain of gods, he felt that Wang Ling and even Jinka's secrets might be explained in this place. Furthermore, Wang Ming felt that after he went back, he had to expand his knowledge once again. For a long time, cultivators on Earth had always regarded themselves as the center of the universe. He thought that most people, including many true immortals, probably didn't know about the existence of the domain of gods. For example, if the 10 founding generals knew that there was an even more heaven-defying domain of the gods beyond the Milky Way, how would they feel? Given their current strength, it would be very difficult for them to reach the domain of the gods, but if those Tao immortals in the domain of the gods had the intention of coming to Earth, Wang Ming felt that it was indeed possible. Then, the problem that arose from this was, were there almighties from the domain of the gods secretly observing Earth now? How big was the gap between the domain of the gods and Earth's civilization? These were the questions that Wang Ming felt he should really be concerned about. While Wang Ming was thinking, Odd Joie also raised a question. If there really was someone on Earth who reached the standard of heavenly Tao and ascended to the domain of the gods, why is there no news at all? If it was an abrupt ascension, there naturally wouldn't be any information left behind, and the world would just have one more missing person. Every year, every month, even every day, there are people disappearing for no reason in this world. No one knows where they went, and there are very few records of the realm of gods in this world. Naturally, the number of people who know about it is also very few, said Devil King. But I did indeed hear about the method to enter the domain of the gods from the previous generation's Beast King. If you can indeed split open the heavenly Tao treasure box, I can tell you without reservation, Devil King said. That's easy. Odd Joie nodded. Then, He raised the peachwood sword high in his hands. "Lord Jinka, it's up to you." A few seconds after he said that, Jinka's sword started to tremble slightly. A brown spirit light transformed into a child in a brown and white robe, and he suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Lord Jinka's real body. Fatty Luo was so excited that he almost fainted. At the same time, the aura that Jinka gave off made Beast King shiver all over, as if his whole body had been frozen. He watched as this sword spirit, who was only the size of a 10-year-old child, slowly walked toward the heavenly Tao treasure box. Then, he stretched out his little hand to stroke the heavenly Tao treasure box, and then suddenly clenched it as if he were squeezing a walnut. Crack. Chapter 778. When he heard the sound of the heavenly Tao treasure box shattering, Devil King's face lit up with excitement that he hadn't felt in a long time. He never thought that the heavenly Tao treasure box would actually be forcibly broken open. Along with the shattering of the treasure box, a bright and dazzling golden light suddenly burst out from the cracks. It was so dazzling that one's eyes could not see clearly. Devil King opened his Holy King eye as wide as he could to see what on earth was inside the box. But he seemed to have underestimated the aura of the domain of the gods contained inside the heavenly Tao treasure box. That aura was like an invisible mist barrier entrenched inside the box, and the moment the box was opened, it automatically flowed out through the crack. Even with the power of the Holy King eye, it was completely unable to penetrate this golden light. Is it a golden flash? Although they couldn't see clearly what was inside the box right away, everyone had indescribable astonished expressions on their faces. This stance, whatever was sealed inside, definitely wasn't something ordinary. Is there really hope for our Holy Beast clan? Little Silver was extremely excited. When he had first seen Devil King and learned that this Grand King of Holy Beasts was still alive, he had been restraining his emotions. Now, his emotions were surging. What on earth was inside? A magic treasure that could defy the heavens and change fate, reverse and change everything? An array? Or a special skill? Or could it be the legendary Wang Jing's fried rice? Little Silver was extremely curious. The golden light from the heavenly Tao treasure box lasted for about 2 or 3 minutes. The light finally disappeared from the broken box, and its contents were exposed to everyone's eyes. The result was stupefying. Because there was nothing inside the heavenly Tao treasure box. It's empty? Little Silver scratched his head, looking a little frantic. How could this be, TCH? Wang Ming raised his eyebrows, as if he had sensed something. Could it be that the thing inside the box can't be opened by force? Or maybe it mutated the moment it was opened. It fell in contact with gold, withered in contact with wood, melted in contact with water, scorched in contact with fire, and penetrated in contact with soil. Could it be like the fragrant concubine in some TV series, who turned into a butterfly and flew away? Fatty Luo said. Impossible. Devil King shook his head and sighed in disappointment. Although I can't see clearly what's inside the box, I'll definitely sense it if something comes out. Wang Ming cupped his chin with a pensive expression. From the current situation, it was obvious that the heavenly Tao treasure box was just a scam. However, since the heavenly treasure box was given to him by someone from the god domain, that Taoist from the god domain must have his true motive. Although Wang Ming still didn't know what on earth their objective was there really a way to revive a holy beast in this world? If there really was one, then what did this empty box mean? After giving the holy beasts hope, he poured cold water on them. Wang Ming was utterly shocked that there could actually be such a pain-in-the-ass person in this world. Or perhaps, all of this was simply to stall for time. Perhaps the sacred beasts really had the possibility of reviving, but in order to delay Devil King from discovering the secret of reviving, they had set up such a trap, trapping Devil King in the game world for 1,000 years to find clues. He had worked hard for 1,000 years, but this was the result. Devil King naturally had his unwillingness, but what could he do even if he was unwilling? That was an almighty from the god domain. He had no choice but to believe it. At the very least, when he had learned that the sacred beasts had gone extinct, it had been this heavenly Tao treasure box that had given him hope and courage to live on when he had almost lost all hope. Perhaps, this was a white lie? At this thought, the expression on Devil King's face instantly became a little relieved. A sacred beast king had the bearing of a sacred beast king. But in comparison, Little Silver looked a lot more upset. He didn't want to believe this ending. The most important thing was that he realized he had been tricked again. Back then, the master of Immortal Mansion had also tricked him into joining Immortal Mansion. Immortal Mansion clearly didn't have a way to cure Monsieur Chien, but he had foolishly believed in a miracle, and had been Immortal Mansion's hired thug for a long time. He realized that he seemed to have a tendency to be tricked. Where was the most basic trust between people? Look! At that moment, Audiobook picked up a fragment of the box. There seems to be something engraved on this fragment. Everyone looked over. When Devil King took a closer look, he realized that it was an immortal character. If translated, it was the word king. Do the other fragments have runes? Wang Ming asked. Audiobook examined all the fragments on the ground, then shook his head. Only this fragment. If I'm right, this rune probably represents the surname of the treasure box's owner, Fatty Luo suddenly said. Why do you think so? This heavenly Tao treasure box clearly isn't an ordinary item. Since it was created, the creator would definitely leave his mark on the magic treasure, which is similar to a signature. But this is a little old-fashioned. Nowadays, most refiners won't sign their names. Why is that? Because once a magic treasure is resold, some resellers will definitely engrave their names on it. If a magic treasure passes through many hands, it will often have a string of names on it, and it's hard to tell who the true creator of the magic treasure is, Fatty Luo said. Fatty Luo said, that's why most weapon refiners now engrave a QR code on their magic weapons. Furthermore, this QR code is designed inside the magic treasure, and the overall material is very special, so it won't wear off easily. Even if someone maliciously covers it, it's useless. This is the most serious anti-counterfeiting mark nowadays. Signatures and whatnot are long out of date. But this also shows that this senior is very old. His surname is Wang. At that moment, Devil King gave the translation of the immortal character. Everyone was stupefied at this result, because they remembered that Devil King had said before that this expert senior had dead fish eyes, and now it was proven that his surname was Wang. If this was a guessing game between friends, most people's first reaction would be Wang Ling. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? Liar Wang. Little Silver grit his teeth, his expression a little resentful. They both have the same surname Wang, and they both have dead fish eyes. Why is the gap between them so big? Little Silver couldn't understand. Everyone, how can you be so sure that this person isn't Ling Jinren? Fatty Luo asked. Little Silver, nonsense. There's no smell of crispy noodle snacks in this box at all. Also, Master's handwriting is much better than his. Chapter 779. This was a bit of a pity for the group of people who had entered Beast King's tomb to explore this time. For Little Silver in particular, this was definitely a big blow. It was easy to imagine how it would feel to have the hope that had already been rekindled. After they left Devil King's mental world, Devil King woke up from its long slumber. Unlike in the past, however, Devil King wouldn't enter the game world again after waking up this time. After spending a whole 1,000 years looking for clues in the game, Devil King was about to throw up. He didn't want to see this game again. Your Majesty Beast King, what do you plan to do now? Wang Ming asked Devil King. I haven't left this place for a long time. The world is so big, I want to go out and take a look. Devil King didn't answer directly, but took out a box studded with all kinds of rare stones and gave it to Little Silver. Young man, although the Heavenly Tao treasure box didn't tell us the secret of the resurrection of holy beasts, it also didn't say that it was impossible for the holy beast race to recover. There's still hope. Little Silver raised his head and picked up the box, looking pensive. Devil King gazed at him. You've already found a very good backer. Open this box when you get back. There are instructions inside. What's inside? Little Silver asked curiously. Holy beasts cultivate very slowly. You're already a 5th-class holy beast at the age of 8,000, which is already very difficult. There's a secret technique inside that allows you to cultivate quickly. But according to the rules of the holy beast race, only holy beasts can see it. Since everyone here is your friend, this king won't avoid suspicion. 1 year later, Qin Lang will come back to retrieve the box. During this 1 year, you must protect the box, understand? All right. Little Silver nodded. After saying that, Devil King looked at the others. The method to the domain of the gods that I promised to tell you is also in this box. After Little Silver finishes studying it, he'll more or less understand. You can discuss it with him in the future. In that case, thank you very much, Your Majesty Beast King. Jua and Wang Ming were delighted when they heard this. By the way, can I have one more thing? Little Silver asked at that moment. Actually, this question was for Fatty Luo on the side. What do you want? Devil King's voice was very gentle. 1,000 withered bones. Little Silver didn't mince words, and then turned to look at Fatty Luo next to him. This is a smith who is working on Lord Jinka's scabbard. I need the 1,000 withered bone as a supplementary material. Devil King instantly understood. That's easy. I'll let Qin Lang pick a few good ones for you. The essence of the resources in Beast King's remains are actually in this tomb. Qin Lang has been in charge of managing it all these years. Yes, Lord Beast King. Qin Lang immediately nodded when he heard this. Actually, you don't have to give so much. Fatty Luo was a little embarrassed. You're welcome. Devil King waved its mountainous claws. Lord Jinka solved a 1,000-year-old problem for me. This little favor is nothing. Besides, it wasn't easy to make Lord Jinka's scabbard. Preparing more materials will also increase the success rate. Fatty Luo laughed. Then it would be impolite of me to refuse. Qin Lang was suddenly curious. Doesn't Lord Jinka have a scabbard to begin with? That's right, I don't have one. I've always wanted to make a scabbard for Lord Jinka. Fatty Luo shook his head. Do you have a choice of the main material? Qin Lang asked. Amateus wood, Fatty Luo replied. I don't think that's enough. Qin Lang shook his head. If you want to make a scabbard for Lord Jinka, you'll need wood from the 3 divine trees at the very least. I can provide you with a few sets of Qin wood. As for the Holy Sky tree, as far as I know, after it became extinct in this world, there is only one person who has a small sapling of the Holy Sky tree. But this person is elusive, and very hard to find. Whether to give it to me or not is a problem. Who is it? Wang Ming asked. Qin Lang's face was solemn. This person's Daoist name is Immortal Zhenyuan. A few days later, it was August 4th on Friday in the 15th week of the semester. That was the end of the joint summer camp for the remains, and Wang Ming made a dazzling appearance in the domineering, Wang Ling 1 uniform in front of the students. Cries of surprise could be heard from the student group. Damn, who's this person? Wang. Teacher Wang. That's not right. Why did Teacher Wang turn into Iron Man after disappearing? So, were they filming a movie? A lot of students stared at this scene in astonishment. Among the people in the training square, the teachers were the most astonished and shaken. When Wang Ming reappeared with Jua and the others who had been sent to look for the suspected coordinates, all the teachers, including Wu Zhenjuan, couldn't help gaping. They were dumbstruck by this high-tech magic treasure mecha armor set. Teacher Wang, are you alright? What a joke, how could I be alright? Furthermore, after this trip, I successfully comprehended a legendary spell. I combined 2 superior spirit techniques, Lion's Roar technique and One Finger technique, into one. Everyone? Then, in the air, they saw Wang Ming shake his head, and then raise his middle finger at Wu Zhenjuan. Come here. Wu Zhenjuan, Teacher Wang, don't joke around. Everyone could see that Wang Ming seemed a little different, but they couldn't say exactly what had changed. If one didn't say that he had become more confident and Shinibu, most of the people here didn't know Wang Ming's true identity. After all the teachers leading the team this time were gold medal teachers from various schools who had been carefully selected by Huaxiao Alliance, and there was no need to doubt their strength and experience. In the eyes of many students, this teacher Wang was just one of the gold medal teachers. But that was the problem. Most of them didn't know that Wang Ming in fact wasn't a cultivator, but an ordinary person. For the sake of Wang Ming's safety this time, the head of state had looked for Wu Zhenjuan before the start of the summer camp. Now, the first thing Wang Ming did after his return was actually to challenge him. As an ordinary person, Wu Zhenjuan really didn't know where on earth Wang Ming got his courage from. Was he accepting the challenge or not? Wu Zhenjuan had no idea at all. He knew Wang Ming's identity, and was even more aware of how much the head of state valued him. Wu Zhenjuan bowed to Wang Ming as he politely declined Wang Ming's request for a duel. "Teacher Wang, since you've already returned safely, this is a joyous occasion for everyone, and worth celebrating." This was Huaxiao Nation's secret weapon, the strongest hidden brain, the only disciple of one of the 10 founding generals, Wisdom Saint President Qi. When all was said and done, even if Wang Ming really was a cultivator and was about as strong as Wu Zhenjuan's, how could Wu Zhenjuan make a move in the face of such multiple identities? The head of state had been secretly observing on the side the entire time. He knew that given Wang Ming's temperament, he would never do something he wasn't prepared for. The head of state deduced that the brand new mecha armor Wang Ming was wearing was probably something Wang Ming had developed on the spot when he had been in danger. Wearing this mecha armor magic treasure was tantamount to Wang Ming having battle strength. It was just that no one knew how strong this battle strength would be. Wu Zhenjuan was the chief instructor of all the teachers leading the team this time, so there was naturally no need to doubt his strength as he had already reached Tier 1 itinerant immortal. Could he really contend with an itinerant immortal with just this mecha armor? Chapter 780. Just like what the head of state and President Qi knew of Wang Ming, he would never do something he wasn't sure of. Thus, the head of state didn't do anything to stop him. For one thing, this could be considered a performance test for Wang Ming's mecha armor, which he had developed on the spot. The head of state was actually very curious about how much this mecha armor could perform, and whether it could really fight an itinerant immortal. Even if it could only withstand a few blows, it could still be considered a major breakthrough, because the person operating the mecha was an ordinary person. In the future, when this mecha armor could be mass-produced, even an ordinary person with a cultivation dream would be able to rely on this mecha to gallop around the cultivation world. This was a new invention that could change the future. On the other hand, the head of state also wanted to take advantage of the showdown between Wu Zhenjuan and Wang Ming to look for that mysterious expert hidden among the teachers. There was still half an hour before the space entrance to Beast King's remains opened. That mysterious person had to still be here. Now that everyone had gathered, the mysterious person had to be here as well. Maybe they could find some clues, Your Excellency Head of State. President Qi's inquiry could already be heard in the head of state's headset. The command center still hadn't received clear instructions on whether or not to stop Wang Ming. Little Chi-Chi, don't worry, my venerable self will control the situation. If necessary, I can make things clear for both of them, the head of state responded swiftly. Wu Zhenjuan didn't make a move, and just raised his head to look at Wang Ming in the sky. He hoped that one of the teachers present could come and smooth things over. At the very least, it wouldn't be too ugly, and both sides would have a way out. But the problem was that no teacher came forward to dissuade him. Because dozens of seconds ago, President Qi had responded to the head of state's command and issued the latest instructions. The command center directly connected the headsets of all the teachers present except Wu Zhenjuan, and asked them not to intervene. Naturally, Wu Zhenjuan was the only one who didn't know about this instruction. After waiting for a moment, Wu Zhenjuan looked a little embarrassed. He took a deep breath and said to Wang Ming in a low voice, "Teacher Wang, it's not too late if you stop now." Wu Zhenjuan was best at music and sound wave spells. While this low roar seemed ordinary, it was also a type of sound wave spell. Bystanders wouldn't feel any discomfort when they heard this spell, since it was only aimed at Wang Ming. Furthermore, he was well aware of Wang Ming's identity as an ordinary person, and had only used less than 5% of his strength. Even so, 5% of an itinerant immortal's strength was enough to make an ordinary person dizzy, and in more serious cases, cause symptoms of shock. He was deliberately putting pressure on Wang Ming so that he would back down in the face of difficulties. But contrary to Wu Zhenjuan's expectations, Wang Ming, dressed in mecha armor, stood steadily in the air and didn't even budge. Wu Zhenjuan only used less than 5% of his strength. Wang Ming smiled. Actually, Wu Zhenjuan, there's no need to be modest with me. I'm very confident in the magic treasure I invented. Wu Zhenjuan frowned, astonished that Wang Ming actually knew how strong he was. I've upgraded this armor's calculation ability. Although I can't guarantee that it's 100% accurate, it's still more than 95% accurate, Wang Ming said with a smile. Before Wang Ming had left Beast King's tomb, he had upgraded Wang Ling 1 for the third time in the remains. The core hub of Wang Ling 1 was now a quadruple core, which was more durable and took less time to recharge. Furthermore, it also had the ability to store energy at the cost of its own life when it ran out of energy. When Wang Ming's quadruple core hub ran out of energy, it could forcibly absorb an enemy's spell and extract spirit energy from the spell to recharge it. But this was a last resort, because it would cause a lot of wear and tear on the mecha armor itself. In a normal situation, Wang Ming could use Wang Ling 1 for a week. In combat, it could last for 2 hours at full power. Apart from the core hub, Wang Ming had also upgraded Wang Ling 1's data calculation ability in all aspects. Of course, this was in fact thanks to Qin Lang's assistance. Qin Lang's tree roots could directly explore the outside world from inside the remains, so Wang Ming had asked Qin Lang to let its roots pierce through the void and return to the research institute to take out a spare head of state 001 chip. This chip contained all the cultivation data currently recorded in the world's databases, such as magic treasures, spells, spirit techniques and so on. It was like what old Qi and the head of state knew about Wang Ming. He never did anything he wasn't sure of. Attack me boldly, Wu Zhenjuan. This isn't a competition, but a performance test of my newly developed scientific magic treasure. Wang Ming was using a roundabout way to hope that Wu Zhenjuan would accept the challenge. He smiled. I challenge Wu Zhenjuan with such sincerity. If you don't respond in kind, I'll be very sad. Wu Zhenjuan pursed his lips, still hesitating over whether to make a move or not. He suddenly recalled a line from a TV series in which a teenager yelled at a general riding a big horse in front of him, Sol Tiandi, do you dare dismount and fight me? At that very moment, this sense of déjà vu was very strong. Thus, Wu Zhenjuan was in a dilemma. Because of Wang Ming's identity as an ordinary person, he didn't dare be too heavy-handed at all. What would happen if he injured the brain of this most powerful brain? That would be the country's loss, and he didn't dare take the blame. But if he didn't make a move now, he would instead look like a coward, which would directly affect this year's ACE teacher assessment. The limit for a gold medal teacher assessment was 10,000 people per year. But there were only 100 ACE teachers. In comparison, the assessment for an ACE teacher was even more stringent, and one had to consider all sorts of aspects. Battle strength was just one of the criteria. Results in leading a class, quality, prestige, students' favorability and so on, all of these were very important. Thus, faced with this dilemma, Wu Zhenjuan could only settle for the next best thing. Teacher Wang, it would be unfair to you if I fight with all my might. Can you tell me the exact battle strength of your current armor? I can seal away my excess strength to fight you. To everyone's surprise, Wang Ming actually directly waved his hand. Do you know why I chose you, Wu Zhenjuan? Wu Zhenjuan. Chapter 781. All the teachers here breathed a sigh of relief at these words. This was a blatant declaration of war. Although a gap in realms could be bridged with magic treasures, there was usually a limit to that. Saying this was simply inviting a fight. Wang Ming wasn't someone without emotional intelligence, and Wu Zhenjuan knew very well that Wang Ming was deliberately goading the teachers here to force Wu Zhenjuan to fight with all his might. And sure enough, Wang Ming's method worked. The teachers watching from the sidelines were all fired up. Wu Zhenjuan. Beat him up. Take out his screws, let's see what else he can say. Many of the students in the queue also cheered Wu Zhenjuan on. Because Wang Ming's words were too arrogant and insolent. Teacher Wu, go. Don't admit defeat. It's just a crappy mecha armor. Which Huaxiao demolition factory is better? Teacher Wu, it's all up to you. Teacher Wu, go. Use EDM, SKR. Electrocute him with SKR. Most of the students were like onlookers who were always there to watch a good show. Now that the trip to the remains was coming to an end, it definitely wouldn't be a loss if they could see the two teachers fight. This was the finale performance of the summer camp in the remains, and could even be considered a valuable lesson in battle observation. Of course, there were still many students who stood on Wang Ming's side, and most of them were students from number 60 high as well as those who had been forced by Jia Yin's murderous gaze to support Wang Ming. Can Teacher Wang do it? Little Peanut shrank back at this situation. In the queue, Wang Ling gazed indifferently at the sky, his eyes unperturbed. Most people knew that magic treasures, like these teachers cheering for Wu Zhenjuan, usually had a limit. Although they could bridge the gap in realms, they could never surpass the level 1 level. For example, if a person with a low cultivation base possessed a powerful magical treasure, it could indeed make up for some of the disparity in strength. However, if the person's realm wasn't high enough, it would be very difficult for them to fully display the magic treasure's battle strength. Thus, it was reasonable to say that a powerful magic treasure indeed couldn't completely replace a person's realm. There were a lot of factors involved here, and a weapon spirit was a big part of it. As for how much combat power a magic treasure could display in the hands of a person, the tacit understanding between the person and the magic treasure's artifact spirit was crucial. But a lot of people overlooked one point: the mecha armor Wang Ming was wearing wasn't a cultivation magic treasure in the traditional sense, but a scientific magic treasure. Such a magic treasure did not have a weapon spirit. In other words, their artifact spirits were the calculators. Using high-density artificial intelligence calculations to replace the artifact spirit, it would have the ability to independently judge and learn. Thus, he didn't say a word. He knew very well what his idiot brother was capable of. Ever since he had repeatedly lost to her when they were young, this person had never done anything that seemed unreliable. But now, compared with this battle, Wang Ling should be more concerned about the head of state's reaction. His heart was as clear as a mirror. He knew that the princeps was secretly observing the mysterious man. In order to stop the sea and sky array this time, Wang Ling had almost been exposed. Fortunately, the head of state and Huaxiao alliance didn't suspect the students for the time being, and instead guessed that the mysterious man was among the teachers. Now, Wang Ling was wondering whether he should find a teacher and take in a disciple like Audiobook, so that he could take the blame for this as well. Wu Zhenjuan knew that there was already no way out. Wang Ming was too domineering and too confident. Thus, he sighed. Since Teacher Wang insists, then please make your move. I can let you make the first move. It's better if you go first, Wu Zhenjuan. I still want to test the strength of this armor. Wang Ming waved his hand, completely unafraid of Wu Zhenjuan. Just as Wu Zhenjuan was frowning and feeling dissatisfied with Wang Ming's slight provocation, he suddenly saw Wang Ming actually stick out his tongue at him in the air. This wasn't Wang Ming's own tongue, but Wang Lingwan's bionic tongue, which had the ability to identify materials and taunt groups at the same time. After the third upgrade, this ability had been upgraded again. Not only could it taunt groups, it could also taunt people in a specific direction. Hence, when Wang Lingwan's bionic tongue stuck out, Wu Zhenjuan suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of anger. It was as if his mind was being controlled, and he was on the verge of erupting in rage. It worked. Wang Ming was delighted. Sure enough, that so-called one-yang finger plus lion's roar skill in the movie was ineffective. In the end, it still wasn't as useful as his tongue. Wu Zhenjuan did his best to restrain his emotions, but realized that he couldn't do so at all. It was only then that he realized the significance of Wang Ming sticking out his tongue in the armor. It wasn't a meaningless action at all, but a magic treasure ability to taunt people visually. Wu Zhenjuan had let Wang Ming make the first move because he wanted to use Wang Ming's first attack to test the strength of this armor. Unfortunately, Wang Ming didn't give him any chance at all. "Teacher Wang, you," at that moment, Wu Zhenjuan's face was already red from holding back. Then, under everyone's watchful eyes, he couldn't hold it in anymore. Like Imperial Guard Fulkang's hand, Wu Zhenjuan's hand couldn't help twitching, and in the end, it actually rose uncontrollably in front of him. Spirit light condensed there, and high-density spirit power molecules turned into tiny particles invisible to the naked eye as they coiled around Wu Zhenjuan's hand. In the end, they were successfully rolled into a ball of spirit energy. This wasn't the legendary spirited spiral pill, but also a type of sound wave technique. It was like breathing fire in an acrobatic performance. Wu Zhenjuan put this ball of spirit energy the size of a ping-pong ball into his mouth, and then he opened his mouth wide in Wang Ming's direction. This was followed by a startled "ah." In a split second, a white beam of light burst out of Wu Zhenjuan's mouth. This beam of light was extremely ferocious as it rose up like an azure dragon. For a moment, many teachers and students were deeply shaken. Many of the teachers who were familiar with Wu Zhenjuan could already tell that this was a level 4 sound wave spell. Even an ordinary teacher would have a hard time withstanding the attack of a tier 4 spell. "Teacher, what spell is this?" "It's so cool," someone in number 60 high's phalanx asked. Old Antique raised his eyebrows. "I remember that this is one of Wu Zhenjuan's ultimate skills, and it's the first move he learned from irascible Dharmaraja Wu Yifan back then, sky-shattering cry. But it looks like Wu Zhenjuan has modified this move and added something of his own to it." "Modified what? Can't you see the sparks on this beam?" Hearing this, everyone was suddenly enlightened. Chapter 782. Wu Zhenjuan's sky-smashing cry was one of irascible Dharmaraja's ultimate skills back then. While they had been bickering just now, Wang Ming had already used Wang Ling 1 to analyze Wu Zhenjuan's data. Through Head of State 001's chip, Wang Ming could easily retrieve data on Wu Zhenjuan's past battles, and through data analysis and comparison, Wang Ming could understand what skills Wu Zhenjuan was best at. Sky-smashing cry was an advanced level 4 sound wave spell. This wasn't Wu Zhenjuan's strongest skill, but it ranked in the top 5 in proficiency. If it was aimed at a vital point, it could easily kill a nascent soul expert. Through the analysis of the world database, Wang Ling could easily obtain data on all the skills that Wu Zhenjuan had already demonstrated to the outside world. Thus, when Wu Zhenjuan made his move, Wang Ming swiftly and precisely formulated a plan to deal with him. Many cultivators had the ability to see in motion, which Wang Ming himself didn't have, but Wang Ling 1's helmet had the powerful ability to break down attacks and see through them when they slowed down. In Wang Ming's eyes, the white song dragon of the sky-smashing cry became very slow, and he could completely turn sideways to avoid this attack. But he didn't choose to do so. Standing in the air, he spread his 5 fingers, and with a crackling sound, it seemed as if electromagnetic waves surged between them to actually form a magnetic shield in front of Wang Ming. The Tsang dragon collided head-on with the magnetic shield, which looked as thin as a cicada's wing. The friction between the shield and the shield gave off endless electric sparks and an ear-piercing noise. But contrary to everyone's expectations, this flimsy-looking magnetic escape was unexpectedly sturdy and perfectly blocked Wu Zhenjuan's attack. After blocking this attack, Wang Ming sighed and stared at Wu Zhenjuan on the ground with disappointment in his eyes. "Only 50% of your strength? Teacher Wang, I think it's better to stop here," Wu Zhenjuan said in a low voice. But from what Wu Zhenjuan had seen just now, Wang Ming's armor was indeed something. For an ordinary person to actually be able to block a sound wave spell that severely injured a nascent soul cultivator, Wu Zhenjuan had to admit that he had indeed underestimated Wang Ming's invention a little. But when he heard Wang Ming's dissatisfaction with him holding back, he was also a little unhappy. "Wu Zhenjuan, I hope you can take this battle seriously. Otherwise, it would be too embarrassing in front of your own students," Wang Ming kindly reminded him in the air. In the next moment, almost in the blink of an eye, Wang Ming raised his hand and aimed it at him. Wang Ling had already automatically locked onto Wu Zhenjuan. The blue dragon which had been shot out by the sky-shattering roar earlier actually reappeared in Wang Ming's palm. The moment the cannon cover opened, a white-blue dragon abruptly rushed out and smashed ruthlessly at Wu Zhenjuan. For a time, countless curses resounded in the surroundings. Holy shit! Sky-shattering howl? Holy shit! This armor has the ability to learn? Holy shit! Gusamuron? This is shield reflect. It's definitely a shield reflect. This move also gave Wu Zhenjuan a fright. Back when the irascible Dharmaraja had imparted this move to him, he had studied it for a long time. The operating formula was rather complicated. An armored machine was able to analyze his sound wave technique? How was this possible? Wu Zhenjuan frowned. He was a master of sound wave spells. He knew how to use them, and even more so, how to dismantle them. The best way to stop this type of sound wave spell was naturally to change the medium through which it was transmitted. Most sound wave spells had to rely on air, cosmic stripping spell. Wu Zhenjuan shouted in his heart. He quickly made a hand seal, and finally interlaced his fingers to form a square. With a hum, a beam of black light shot out and aimed at the blue dragon in the air. It was another high-level spell. This is... All the teachers and students at the scene cried out in alarm. They saw that in the air, there seemed to be a space that had been peeled away, and it was pitch black. However, this wasn't a space fissure or a space storm, but a spell which had been specially designed to counter sound wave spells. It could forcibly change the medium through which sound could be transmitted, causing the sound wave spell to vanish like a clay ox in the sea, until it finally hit a ball of cotton. Teacher Wang, aren't you looking down on me a little too much by using a sound wave spell to counter me? Wu Zhenjuan mused. But as soon as he said this, Wang Ming's laughter rang out. You've fallen into my trap, Wu Zhenjuan. Wu Zhenjuan. In that black space enveloped by the cosmic stripping spell, a pale white light actually appeared. This light was none other than the white-blue dragon that had unleashed the sky-smashing cry. His stripping spell had actually failed? Wu Zhenjuan had an incredulous expression on his face. This scene had really caught him off guard. Wu Zhenjuan had thought that his move would be able to smoothly neutralize Wang Ming's attack, but the situation was completely out of his expectations. He hadn't expected Wang Ming's sky-smashing cry to actually ignore his stripping spell and shoot straight at him. In his panic, Wu Zhenjuan could only raise his hands to block it. The blast landed heavily on Wu Zhenjuan's crossed arms, and he was sent flying backward, his feet plowing 2 deep trenches in the ground. Teacher Wang's move is really fierce. After being hit by the blast, Wu Zhenjuan finally realized what the problem was. This wasn't the sky-smashing cry at all. Spirit energy cannon. Wang Ming quickly replied, this is the most basic move for my armor. I think the attack that hit Wu Zhenjuan just now had a majestic momentum, right? To be able to knock him back so much, it proves that the impact is pretty good. The problem with the spirit energy cannon's recoil had already been completely fixed after Wang Ming's third modification. Now that Wang Ming had fired the spirit energy cannon, Wang Ling 1 would automatically adjust itself to minimize the recoil. Spirit energy cannon? Wu Zhenjuan narrowed his eyes. But why? Wu Zhenjuan wants to ask. It's clearly a spirit energy cannon, so why does it look like the sky-smashing cry? Wang Ming smiled. Wu Zhenjuan, do you know about skin? My armor can imitate magic skin, and I thought your sky-smashing cry was pretty cool, so I used it. Wu Zhenjuan, everyone. A moment later, Wu Zhenjuan waved his sleeves and sighed. I thought my stripping spell had failed, but it turns out that Teacher Wang had used a smokescreen to evade it. That blast just now was indeed very powerful, but if Teacher Wang thinks that it's the only thing he can do to me, he's too naive. Wang Ming shrugged his shoulders and sneered. Of course I don't expect a spirit energy cannon at 20% power to do anything to you. Chapter 783. It actually only had 20% of its strength, a lot of people were stupefied by Wang Ming's move. This armor could actually be replaced with the Spirit Power Cannon's skill skin. This was too amazing. Now, most of the people were silent. The teachers and students who had been skeptical about this armor didn't dare say anything. Because this armor indeed couldn't be judged by common sense. Overall, it seemed that Wang Ming still had the upper hand. Teacher Wang's equipment is amazing, I want it too. But does anyone know what realm Teacher Wang was at before he put on the armor? Someone asked. Dopey Guo was blank. For the first time, he realized that there was actually something that he and his uncle didn't know. Say, if Teacher Wang was just an ordinary person and could compete with an itinerant immortal in this armor would simply be a miracle invention. On the side, Super Chin chuckled and rubbed his head. Of course, I'm just joking. Everyone who doesn't know Teacher Wang's realm, don't take it seriously. Wang Ling, the wind on the field changed as a result. It was only at this moment that many students truly realized that learning knowledge could really change one's fate. It turned out that the gap in realm, cultivation talent, and strength could be made up for with knowledge. Sure enough, knowledge was power, this was the true truth. After the first exchange of blows, the teachers in charge of maintaining order at the scene started to have the students sit down to watch this contest between the power of cultivation and science. Everyone, watch carefully and take notes. This is a rare learning opportunity. A teacher instructed them on the spot. At some point, everyone realized that a barrier like that of a martial arts arena had already been set up between Wu Zhenjuan and Wang Ming. This was a barrier created by the head of state, and it was sufficiently stable. A lot of teachers and students who didn't know the situation thought that it had probably been set up by some busybody. But even if it hadn't been set up, the teachers planned to work together to set one up. If Wang Ming's armor could really compete with an itinerant immortal's, then it would be a great battle between itinerant immortals. If a battle between true immortals got serious, it would be enough to destroy a planet. A showdown between itinerant immortals couldn't be underestimated. They were still in the remains, and if restrictions weren't put in place, the remains might be affected. In short, after the barrier was set up, it was now Wu Zhenjuan's turn to have a headache. The meaning was already very clear. He wanted him to compete with Wang Ming. Furthermore, at that moment, Wu Zhenjuan had already realized the profound significance of this competition. Compared to the significance of this competition, his title as an ace teacher suddenly seemed insignificant. Just like many people believed, this was a battle between cultivation and science and technology. Could the power of science really reach the same level as the combat power of cultivators? This was the problem, and the most crucial point was that once Wang Ming's patent was released to the public, it was bound to benefit a large number of people in the future who didn't have any talent for cultivation, but had a cultivation dream. With the commercialized and factory-produced armor, it was possible to be on equal footing with the cultivators who had been training hard for 100 years. For a true cultivator, their state of mind would definitely be affected by the difference. If one were to think further, perhaps in the end, more and more people in the world would give up cultivation and choose to wear this kind of armor. Thus, Wu Zhenjuan understood in this battle. He had to win. Even if it was for the sake of all cultivators, it looks like Teacher Wang is ready. Then, I won't be polite anymore. Thus, Wu Zhenjuan exhaled softly. The next moment, he stamped his foot lightly, and a wheel impressively appeared under his feet. Psychic spell. A teacher immediately recognized the origin of this spell. Wu Zhenjuan was actually using the psychic spell. It looked like Wu Zhenjuan was really going to get serious. Some teachers who knew Wu Zhenjuan couldn't help recalling Irascible Dharmaraja's most powerful spell back then. This spell required the cooperation of a special kind of psychic beast. Thus, the moment they saw the psychic array, a lot of the teachers were intrigued. They couldn't help recalling Irascible Dharmaraja's psychic beast back then. Furthermore, it was very obvious that what Wu Zhenjuan had summoned now was the same psychic beast that Irascible Dharmaraja had summoned. As the psychic array appeared on the ground, a black spring that looked like ink gushed out of the ground, and a few seconds later, several purple lightning bolts emerged from it. Purple lightning? Standing in the air, Wang Ming gazed at the lightning bolts. They were probably going to use their ultimate move. Wang Ming already had a hunch in his heart. What kind of psychic beast is this? Outside the arena, there were still some students who didn't know the truth. Purple lightning. This is Ziwei lightning, one of the legendary 5 Yin thunders, and also the most sinister of them all. It's extremely destructive. To be able to tame a spirit beast like this, its owner must have abundant yang qi in his body. Ordinary people can't tame a spirit beast like this. Old Antique explained on the side. He didn't explain what on earth this psychic beast was, but the atmosphere was already very mysterious. Wu Zhenjuan must have suffered a lot to tame a spirit beast like this. His purpose in summoning this spirit beast is to borrow the power of its purple lightning to complete Irascible Dharmaraja's ultimate move back then. This is a level 6 sound wave spell that Irascible Dharmaraja created, and the conditions to learn it are very harsh. As soon as he said this, the black spring that gushed out of the psychic array had already covered the entire arena. The entire arena was filled with purple lightning, and there was no place to step at all. Wu Zhenjuan had done this on purpose. He knew that Wang Ming was relying on the power of his armor to be able to float in the air, which also consumed spirit power. Fighting continuously in the air would consume even more spirit power. Wu Zhenjuan's battle plan was very clear. Wang Ling 1, activate the omnidirectional magnetic shield. Wang Ming immediately gave the order to have the magnetic shield protect him and avoid being affected by the purple lightning on the ground. He admitted that if he had been wearing the crude version of his armor from the very beginning, he wouldn't have been able to withstand this kind of continuous consumption at all. At that moment, there were new fluctuations on the ground. Ripples appeared on the surface of the black spring. As for the spiritual beast hidden in the black spring, it had finally revealed some clues about itself. It had a large and slippery black tail, and from its appearance, it looked like a fish. Someone in the arena cried out in alarm on the spot. What the hell? Eel? Chapter 784. When the Supreme Yin Spirit Beast, the symbol of the 5 Yin Thunder, revealed itself, the students in the field burst out in cries of surprise. Being so close to the scene was like watching a special effects blockbuster up close. Furthermore, it was an omnidirectional surround sound effect, which was incomparably stunning. At school, it was already rare enough to see 2 golden core teachers duking it out. For most high school kids, this contest of strength between itinerant immortals was indeed a rare experience. Wang Ling already knew that after today's competition was over, there would definitely be a lot of students who would write about this in their summer camp diaries. This was a rare, ready-made material, and most importantly, he could fill up the number of words in the diaries. What battle between cultivators? That kind of word count was the best thing to fill up. As long as you didn't run out of words, a few hundred words was enough to fill up a skill. When 2 people used their Qigong skills, they could fill up the gaps with hundreds of words. Wang Ling had seen this kind of routine all too often. Because Father Wang was a very good example of it, there was a saying that web writers were all water, and whether or not a web writer's level could be judged depended on whether the water was happy or not. I've gone off topic, back to the battle. The purple spirit Yin eel that Wu Zhenjuan had summoned was the one that Irascible Dharmaraja had tamed back then. Later, Wu Zhenjuan had inherited Irascible Dharmaraja's teachings, so this 1,000-year-old purple spirit Yin eel had naturally fallen into his hands. But Wu Zhenjuan was usually unwilling to summon this purple spirit Yin eel. As a symbol of extreme Yin, the purple spirit Yin eel's tremendous Yin qi would be a huge burden on his body. Even with his primordial yang body, it would take him at least a month to recover. And the most important thing was that in this 1 month, he had to have, restrict, desire. Otherwise, the result of his primordial yang leaking out wouldn't just be a simple burden, it would also cause Wu Zhenjuan's body very troublesome after-effects. And among these after-effects, the most dangerous was being impotent for life. Thus, when Wu Zhenjuan had summoned this purple spirit Yin eel, Wang Ming had already analyzed Wu Zhenjuan's next move through the world database. This was an ultimate technique created by the Irascible Dharmaraja in the past. It was also the only level 6 sound wave destruction spell that required the purple spirit Yin eel, Buddhist lightning myriad. Hence, this was a huge test for Wang Ming and the Wang Ling one he had created. Sound wave spells had a great advantage over other spells, and that was their short casting time. After all, some complex destruction spells took a long time to cast and cast. Hence, when the purple spirit eel exposed its huge, glossy tail in front of everyone, Wang Ming knew that the real contest had already begun. At that moment, the entire black spring under their feet was this purple spirit eel's territory. Using the mecha armor's insight to analyze it, Wang Ming discovered that this purple spirit eel was over 100 zhang long and was wreathed in purple lightning, like a flood dragon in the mud. Most importantly, Wang Ming realized that this purple spirit eel actually had 3 heads. Against a 3-headed electric eel, any female streamer would have to concede defeat. "Teacher Wang, please be careful," Wu Zhenjuan said in a low voice as a warning. The 3-headed electric eel had already swum close to him, and then actually soared into the air. Everyone watched as its thick, long, and smooth body coiled around Wu Zhenjuan. The air around them surged wildly and the black spring below them surged. In a split second, even the air started to distort as violent purple lightning mercilessly whipped the entire space in the barrier. In less than a dozen seconds after the purple spirit eel had been summoned, the environment inside the barrier had changed dramatically, as if it were the end of the world. The space was squeezed frantically and was almost completely occupied by Wu Zhenjuan. The 30 zhang space that Wang Ming had opened up with his omnidirectional magnetic shield seemed to become the last pure land at the end of the world. A lot of people were secretly alarmed when they saw this. If Wang Ming hadn't opened up his magnetic shield at that moment, what would have happened? Wu Zhenjuan wasn't in a hurry as he slowly walked toward the purple spirit eel's coiled body in the air. Finally, he took a deep breath and brought his mouth close. This time, even those who didn't understand how this spell worked at all could tell that this was a special, electronic version of a loudspeaker. "There's this kind of operation?" A lot of the teachers were stunned. Although they had long since heard about irascible Dharmaraja's Buddhist lightning combo, they were still frightened when they saw it with their own eyes. To actually use an electric eel's coiled body as a loudspeaker, what kind of amazing operation was this? At the same time, the expression of the head of state, who was secretly observing from a distance, stiffened at this scene. He could almost instinctively sense the danger of this move. "Your Excellency, head of state." Old Shi was anxious. He wasn't present, but he knew how dangerous this move was. When all was said and done, Wang Ling one was just an armor that Wang Ming had built himself outside. There was no way of knowing how strong it was without the use of the official computer simulation data. President Xi was worried that Wang Ming would be completely defeated by Wu Zhenjuan's move. After all, Huaxiao Alliance's logistics department had just returned the coffin that had been custom-made for Wang Ming. "No hurry, I'm here." In the end, the head of state shook his head and didn't stop him. Because he didn't sense Wang Ming's panic at all. For Wang Ming, this enhanced version of the electronic megaphone was indeed something he hadn't expected at first. According to the analysis of the data in the world database, although irascible Dharmaraja had summoned the purple spirit eel back then and combined it with the purple lightning to cast the Buddhist lightning combo, it hadn't been used like this. Wu Zhenjuan had obviously modified this move, and he hadn't used it for a very long time. This was why Wang Ling one couldn't analyze it. "Teacher Wang, you've already lost," Wu Zhenjuan said to the loudspeaker made of electric eels. This wasn't the official Buddhist lightning combo, and was just a normal question, but it had already created an extremely powerful sound wave. Wu Zhenjuan's voice seemed to come from beyond the heavens as it reverberated endlessly in the barrier space, and the ear-piercing sound waves caused many students and teachers to cover their ears. They didn't directly receive this power, because of the barrier. 99% of the power of Wu Zhenjuan's sound waves was contained within it. Even so, this ear-piercing sound wave was still unbearable for many of the students and teachers present. To them, it felt like a cat scratching at a blackboard. Fortunately, the head of state had set up this barrier himself. If it had been set up by the other teachers, it would have already exploded. Not necessarily. Contrary to everyone's expectations, Wang Ming directly responded indifferently. Chapter 785. Was it a spirit power cannon? Wu Zhenjuan narrowed his eyes and gazed into the air. This was indeed the feeling of a spirit power cannon. He could feel energy rapidly accumulating in the cannon's firing port on Wang Ming's right arm. Teacher Wang wants to use a spirit power cannon to counter my killing blow? That's too whimsical. Wu Zhenjuan shook his head. The next moment, his aura sank. Rumble. The black spring on the ground suddenly erupted as a signal of danger rang out. Wu Zhenjuan is going to attack, the students shouted one after another. The purple spirit Eel Supreme Lightning swept across the battlefield like a lightning dragon in this doomsday-like dual space, and an earth-shattering explosion shook the entire barrier as thunderstorms erupted everywhere. If it wasn't for the barrier's control, Beast King's remains would have really suffered if this thunderstorm had spread out. The students in this era of peace had never seen such a scene before. Although they clearly knew that this battle was isolated from the outside world and that this force wouldn't affect them, many of them were still so frightened by this momentum that they trembled all over and turned pale. Lotus Sun and Feather Lin subconsciously hugged each other. So scary. Super Chen and Dopey Guo were also scared silly. It's simply terrifying. Wang Ling looked around and saw that everyone nearby looked shocked, so he hurriedly cast a small spell on himself that made his face instantly turn white. To be honest, this scene was indeed terrifying, but compared with the duel between Immortal Jin Yuan and Wind's spirit back then, it paled in comparison. A fight between two venerated immortals had almost destroyed a planet. So in comparison, Wang Ling truly felt that this kind of battle was nothing. But he didn't want to look like he was the only sober one in a drunken stupor. In this kind of situation, it was safer to go with the flow. It wouldn't be good if he aroused suspicion. Thus, Wang Ling cast the turning white spell to make his face look extremely pale. He even did his best to secrete a few drops of sweat. In the end, when Super Chen came back to his senses and looked at Wang Ling, he was startled by his face. Oh my God. Are you okay? The people who had been watching the battle on the side were distracted by this cry, and they all turned to look in Wang Ling's direction. A lot of people saw that a number 60 high student was actually so scared that his face was deathly pale and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. Little Peanut was also frightened by Wang Ling's expression, and he recalled what had happened with President Bai. Could it be that President Bai plotted against you and sucked you into the space last time, and you took a trip to the gates of hell, so you're traumatized? After all, it had only been less than a week since the incident happened. The wreath which the class had pooled money for Wang Ling back then hadn't even withered yet. How could the psychological trauma be so easily overcome? Dopey Guo patted Wang Ling on the shoulder and was overjoyed. He smiled at Wang Ling in a low voice. You're a mascot, why are you so timid? Wang Ling, it's nothing. I'll hug you and see if it makes you feel better. As soon as he finished speaking, Dopey Guo opened his arms to hug her. However, as soon as his body touched hers, Dopey Guo felt a chill run down his spine, and a chill immediately rushed to his head. Then, his face started to turn pale, and his whole body started to tremble. Super Chen and Little Peanut were shocked. What the hell? Is this contagious? Dopey Guo, I'm fine. I just don't know why, but I suddenly feel a chill, like a snake is coiling around me. After Dopey Guo said this, Wang Ling looked into the distance out of the corner of his eye. Fang Xing directly avoided his peripheral vision. Wang Ling, on the other side, a great battle was about to break out. After Wu Zhenjuan's chi sank into his dantian, a massive sound wave, accompanied by a vigorous purple electric current, blasted out of the purple spirit Eel's big horn like a world-destroying electromagnetic gun. Boom! The terrifyingly huge force stirred the air in all directions. In the instant that circles of electricity came into contact with the air, they interweaved with the black spring below. The sound of waves, wind, and electricity interweaved with each other. It was as if there was a sound of the great Tao constantly echoing in the enchanted space. Wang Ling's eyebrows furrowed slightly at this scene. Irascible Dharmaraja was indeed a rare cultivation genius. Back then, he had created this Buddha lightning myriad technique, and there were many other tricks to it. Unfortunately, Rumor had it that after taking Wu Zhenjuan in as his disciple, irascible Dharmaraja had suddenly disappeared one day. Even his disciple, Wu Zhenjuan, couldn't find irascible Dharmaraja's whereabouts. All these years, Wu Zhenjuan had been out in the field all over the place, mostly because he wanted to find his Shifu irascible Dharmaraja. There had always been rumors in the outside world that irascible Dharmaraja knew his lifespan was coming to an end, so he planned to find a disciple to inherit his mantle and then find a quiet place to pass away. But no one knew whether this information was correct or not. All in all, if Wang Ling had to evaluate this Buddha lightning myriad technique of all the level 6 spells, this was probably the one closest to Heavenly Tao. Although it wasn't as powerful as Heavenly Tao, it still had the effect of a fox borrowing the tiger's might. This technique was full of power. Next, it was up to Wang Ming to deal with it. It was very obvious that Wang Ming had already thought of a countermeasure. Almost the moment before Wu Zhenjuan released his killing move, Wang Ming's 10-layered spirit power cannon was fired into the air. But this time, the spirit power cannon's target wasn't Wu Zhenjuan, and it wasn't to counter Wu Zhenjuan's skill, but to break open the space wall. This action instantly attracted the attention of many teachers. They didn't know what Wang Ming was going to do, but that he could actually break open the space wall with just the power of a suit of armor. It was already quite astonishing. What is Teacher Wang trying to do by breaking open the space wall? He's not going to run, is he? Seeing this scene, a lot of people didn't understand what Wang Ming meant at all. Wu Zhenjuan, if you think the spirit power cannon is the only move I have, you're too naive. After successfully breaking open the space wall, Wang Ming smiled at Wu Zhenjuan with incomparable confidence. Wu Zhenjuan didn't understand what Wang Ming was going to do, but when he saw Wang Ming's expression, he was already on guard. In the next moment, Wang Ming gazed at Wu Zhenjuan. Heavenly E-satellite. Target locked. Heavenly E-bullet. Fire. As soon as he said this, a ball of light actually appeared in the shattered space wall, and then grew larger and larger at an extremely fast speed. At that moment, it wasn't just Wu Zhenjuan, even the teachers and students watching on, including President Xi and the other 10 generals who were commanding from Huaxiao Alliance headquarters, all had indescribable alarmed expressions on their faces. Heavenly E-satellite? When on Earth was that? Wu Zhenjuan finally knew what the killing move Wang Ming was talking about was. His face changed dramatically. Boom! An extremely frightening silver pillar of energy shot out of the space wall and pierced through Wu Zhenjuan like an energy wave. It directly smashed the sound waves of the Buddha lightning myriad and scorched the space around it until it distorted. Wherever the silver pillar of light passed, cracks even appeared in the space like a spider web, and the smell of destruction and chaos mingled within. Chapter 786. When the dazzling light slowly dissipated, the result of this duel was finally revealed to the world. No one expected that the mecha armor Wang Ming had invented could actually directly mobilize the Heavenly E-satellite's pulse cannon. Because of the barrier outside, the Heavenly E-satellite's pulse cannon couldn't reach Wang Ming directly, which was why Wang Ming had specially broken open the space wall to let the pulse cannon's light flow in through the cracks in the space. This pulse cannon directly scared the purple spirit eel back into the psychic array, instantly destroying Wu Zhenjuan's sound wave attack and restoring peace to the hellish, apocalyptic barrier. When the smoke from the battle dissipated, everyone saw Wang Ming without his armor and a bare-chested Wu Zhenjuan lying on the ground. Wu Zhenjuan wasn't injured, but had been knocked unconscious by the pulse cannon. The Daoist robe he was wearing had taken a large part of the damage, but it was already unusable as it was in tatters and had been completely destroyed by the pulse wave. Too bad. Wu Zhenjuan's Daoist robe was destroyed. Teacher Wang's armor was melted by the blast just now. Then who in the end won this duel? Did the cultivators win? Or did science and technology win? It's a tie. Didn't you see Teacher Wang fall to the ground? For a moment, the students were talking animatedly. Quick, go help him. When the barrier dispersed, the medical team who had already been waiting on the side swarmed over and carried the 2 people away to check on their injuries. Both of them looked injured. Actually, they weren't. When Wang Ling saw Wang Ming being carried away, the corners of his lips curled slightly. This black-bellied guy was pretending to be unconscious. 20 minutes later, an almost unscathed Wang Ming returned to the lounge dedicated to the rainbow glass box. Jia Yin was already waiting inside. When she saw Wang Ming come in through the automatic door, she straightaway stomped her foot in anger. "You're really something? Using the Heavenly East satellite without permission? Without the head of state's approval, you'll go to jail." Wang Ming smiled shamelessly. "That's great. If I go to jail, I strongly recommend that you send me to Songhai First Prison. I heard there's still one person missing to play mahjong." Jia Yin, fine. Looking at his cheeky expression, Jia Yin already had a rough idea that Wang Ming had a backup plan. This approach was not surprising, and it was very much in line with the strongest brain's fine style. "By the way, when I fell just now, were you nervous?" Wang Ming asked about what had happened after the duel. However, Jia Yin's expression didn't change in the slightest. "No. Impossible. When I disappeared, I heard that you cried for a few days." Jia Yin's face darkened. "You? Who started this rumor?" Wang Ming directly moved his face very close to Jia Yin's. "Is it really a rumor?" Jia Yin turned her face away. "If the military dogs of our brigade died, would be sad too." "Oh, I see." Wang Ming shrugged. "By the way, weren't you worried when I collapsed just now?" "No." Jia Yin's answer seemed to be quite decisive. Wang Ming sighed a little dejectedly. Sure enough, that Sundra was hard to deal with. Especially this kind of arrogant person who didn't speak a single word of truth. "All right, then I'm leaving." Wang Ming turned around and waved at Jia Yin. "Where are you going?" Jia Yin asked anxiously. "Eat. I'm going to visit Teacher Wu while I'm at it. I'm not a cultivator. I'm starving after that fierce operation just now." Jia Yin stepped forward and pulled Wang Ming back. "You're not allowed to go." Wang Ming was startled. "What are you doing?" Jia Yin raised Wang Ming's chin. "What do you think I'm doing?" Then, Jia Yin slowly closed her eyes and moved her mouth closer to his. Wang Ming was startled. "Isn't it too late for you to do CPR now?" Jia Yin, in the Huaxiao Alliance command room, the 10 generals who were watching the battle were stunned. General Yi stared at President Qi in disbelief. "Heavenly E satellite, did you authorize this?" The Heavenly E satellite pulse wave was a national weapon that absolutely couldn't be used without the approval of the head of state. Of course, President Qi knew what was at stake here, but he believed that Wang Ming wouldn't be so foolish. "Hurry up and investigate," President Qi shouted at the technical department. In less than 10 seconds, the results were out. The technician stared at the screen and frowned deeply. "Reporting, President Qi, the results are out. This pulse wave looks like the Heavenly E satellite pulse wave. It wasn't launched by the Heavenly E satellite. The Heavenly E satellite is still in standby mode. It wasn't a pulse wave launched by the Heavenly E satellite. Then why did this guy shout, 'Heavenly E satellite'?" General E questioned. "Reporting, General E, we have indeed checked. After the Heavenly E satellite is used, it automatically enters a power storage state. It takes about half an hour for the second shot to be fired, and in this case, the Heavenly E satellite will automatically go into hibernation and shut down. But we just found that the Heavenly E satellite is in standby mode. This is enough to prove that the shot just now wasn't launched by the Heavenly E satellite." "Oh, if it wasn't launched by the Heavenly E satellite, was it launched by a ghost?" General E stared at the technician. The technician felt very wronged and smiled tearfully. Maybe, it really was launched by a ghost. Because the Heavenly E satellite really didn't react at all after it was launched. More than 20 people in the technical team checked inside and out, and there was nothing wrong with it at all. But Luo Qiuhui, the female medicine saint of the 10 generals, shook her head. "I think the same as old Qi. Wang Ming, this kid is usually a little playful, but he's not someone who doesn't follow the rules. Who knows, this pulse wave might not have been launched by the Heavenly E satellite at all. Luo Qiuhuai's words directly reminded President Qi. President Qi thought of a possibility. Check again and see if there have been any new satellites worldwide in the last few days. Hearing this, the technician's fingertips quickly jumped over the control panel. In less than 2 minutes, he had already found the information. Found it, President Qi, how is it? In the last 3 days, apart from the defense satellite launched by Mixiu Nation, there's another private satellite that was launched from an unknown coordinate. Sure enough, when the technician said this, President Qi already knew what had happened. Have you verified it? General E asked. The technician. We've already mobilized 10 satellites to take pictures, and found that the external design of this private satellite is almost identical to that of the Heavenly E satellite. Furthermore, there are obvious traces of a pulse wave. It's now in hibernation mode. That is to say, while Professor Wang Ming was missing, not only did he put together this suit of armor, he also specially built a satellite and launched it into space. Chapter 787. As an ordinary person, Wang Ming had practically proved with his actions that even a muggle without cultivation talent could use his wisdom and knowledge to change his fate. Of course, to be honest, people like Wang Ming were in the minority, and there might not be another one like him in thousands of years. But ordinary people did indeed have the possibility of changing their fate. The key wasn't whether they could, but whether they wanted to. By the way, the mecha armor that Kid Wang Ming invented shouldn't have been destroyed, right? General Yi's words were ambiguous, but his tone was very certain. A lot of people had been blinded by the intense light from the pulse wave caused by the E-bomb, and most of them had seen Wang Ming and Wu Zhenjuan fall to the ground when the light from the pulse wave disappeared. But this couldn't fool a true immortal. General E and the other 10 generals had seen it very clearly. The moment the power of the pulse wave and the light dissipated, Wang Ling withdrew Wang Ling 1 armor and put it away in his storage space. It wasn't like what the others had thought, that the armor had been destroyed by the pulse wave. It's indeed still here. President Qi nodded. According to Huaxiao Alliance's regulations, as an official scientific researcher, Wang Ming developed this armor without reporting it in advance, so it should be confiscated. According to the regulations, he should also be punished, General Yi said. As expected, Blade Master is as impartial as ever. Female medicine Saint Luo Qiuhuai smiled slightly and smoothed things over on the side. But considering how sudden it all happened this time, Wang Ming developed this armor in a moment of life-threatening danger. Although he didn't report it, according to Huaxiao Alliance's crisis self-defense regulations, he can be exempted from the corresponding punishment, and the armor can even be exempted from being confiscated. This is his personal property, and Huaxiao Alliance has no right to interfere. General Yi's brow furrowed into a knot again. Actually, he understood this reasoning. Little Ming won this battle, but he chose to play dead at the last moment. Everyone should know what this means, right? President Qi said indifferently. How could the 10 generals not understand the meaning of Wang Ming's action? The two sides were far apart in terms of realm strength, but because of this suit of armor, there was practically no gap between them. If Wang Ming won this fight in full view of the public, it was bound to have a huge impact on the mentalities of the teachers and students watching the fight, and might even lead to mental problems. For cultivators, the state of mind was also a very important decisive factor. It would directly determine whether one could go further on the path of cultivation. It would be too unrealistic for the teachers and students present to stop progressing in the future because of this armor and attempt to rely on the power of science and technology to quickly increase their strength. Wu Zhenjuan had also collapsed. But at the very least, Wang Ming had deliberately turned this battle into a draw, which at the very least showed that cultivation and science were equally matched and complemented each other. Little Ming once told me that science is dead, but cultivation is alive, with infinite possibilities, President Qi said. This was what Wang Ming had said before, and was one of the main reasons why he had set the match to a draw this time. Although old Qi himself didn't know why a muggle who didn't know anything about cultivation would say something that sounded like chicken soup for the soul, it could be said that Wang Ming had personally experienced this since he was young. The armor that Wang Ming had developed this time was indeed very abnormal. It could even fight a 9th-level itinerant immortal to a draw. But if he ran into someone a little more powerful, his equipment could be dismantled in a matter of minutes. Given the current level of science and technology, there were actually still bottlenecks. Wang Ming had already considered breaking through this bottleneck when he had improved Wang Ling 1 for the 3rd time. He thought that the domain of the gods would definitely have the answer he wanted to know. But that was a story for another time. What do the rest of you think? General Yi turned to look at the other 10 generals present. Qiu Huai and Old Qi have a point. Wang Ming can be exempted from punishment. He can also keep the armor. I even think he should be commended to a certain extent. Looking at the others, Marshal Jiang finally cleared his throat and spoke as a representative. Commended? He should be commended. Marshal Jiang said resolutely, for Wang Ming, this should have been a dead end, but he managed to turn it around. And most importantly, in the face of such a crisis, he was actually able to calmly design a suit of armor that can be said to transcend the century. I think we should commend him for meritorious service, and then hold an internal symposium for him to share his experience in making armor or something. General Yi was startled. Are you the devil? Marshal Jiang, the 10 generals all looked at Marshal Jiang. They instantly understood. This was confiscation in disguise. Marshal Jiang shrugged. Of course, I'm just mentioning it. Whether to commend him or hold a symposium is another matter. The point is that Wang Ming doesn't have to be punished or hand over the armor. That's all I have to say. The Dead Sea of Space has always been called a graveyard for magic treasures. All these years, the various major countries have had very limited use of the Dead Sea of Space. Many of them, including us, just use it as a dumping ground. But it turns out that some of the junk magic treasures inside, whether they were thrown in by humans or carelessly sucked in, actually still have some value. If we can properly develop the Dead Sea of Space and recycle enough of the junk to turn it into treasure, this will be an invisible rich mine. President Xi expressed his opinion. So my opinion is that we can hold a symposium, but not for little Ming to share his experience in making armor, but for him to talk about his origins in the Dead Sea of Space. In passing, explain the cause of death of that Dark Network member, Ghosthead Blade. What do you say, oldie? Since Battle Saint and Medicine Saint have spoken up one after another, this old man naturally has no other opinion. General Yi nodded in agreement. If news of Ghosthead Blade's death in the Dead Sea of Space got out, it would definitely be a huge blow to the Dark Network. Finally, as for the commendation that Battle Saint mentioned, I think we should dispense with it. Wang Ming, this kid, is still a good-for-nothing, and we can't praise him too highly. And to be honest, I still want to punish him. In the end, the reason why this crisis happened this time was because he was too rash. That hothead. Saying this, President Xi slapped the table, his face red and he looked a little angry. One by one, the technicians buried their heads in their work and didn't dare make a sound. Only the 10 generals' hearts were as clear as a mirror. Old Qi looked unperturbed on the surface, but in fact, he was overjoyed in his heart. Since ancient times, when a disciple surpassed his master, there had never been a teacher who wouldn't be happy. Chapter 788. The 10 generals were still here, and there were so many technical personnel. He was a commander, an aloof wisdom saint, how could he laugh? Since everyone is more or less in agreement, then it's decided for the time being. Let's wait until little Ming comes back. President Xi did his best to restrain his emotions as he cleared his throat. By the way, has the head of state found any clues on that mysterious expert? General Yi asked at that moment. He was very concerned about this expert who had mixed in with the teachers. It looks like he hasn't for the time being. This senior is very good at hiding himself. Even the head of state can't detect him. President Xi shook his head. But that's fine. After this, we will specifically conduct a physical examination for all the teachers who will be leading the team after they return from Beast King's remains. A physical examination? General E raised an eyebrow. His subconscious was telling him that this physical examination absolutely wasn't simple. President Xi nodded. There has been a physical examination in previous years, mainly to examine some injured teachers to see if they have accidentally brought in a special virus from the remains, and mainly for quarantine purposes. But this year, it's for everyone. It's not just the teachers, but also the students participating in the summer camp. This is also the head of state's intention. When President Xi said this, everyone already understood. This physical examination for all the teachers had probably been specially designed to target that mysterious expert. High-precision scientific equipment was used for the physical examination, and common methods of concealment couldn't be hidden from this equipment. Furthermore, blood tests were absolutely unavoidable during the quarantine. If a teacher refused to take part in the physical examination, they could basically be added to the list of suspects. In short, for that mysterious expert, this was absolutely a situation where it was hard to get off. The 10 generals nodded one after another. This move by the head of state was really brilliant. And so, it was August 5th on Saturday in the 15th week of the semester. Wang Ling returned home in the wee hours of the morning, and Audiobook drove him to the entrance of the Wang family's small villa. Wang Ming had actually planned to personally take Wang Ling home, but in the end, he couldn't dissuade Jai Yin, and was forcibly dragged back to the research institute to make a report. Previously, Jai Yin had only heard that the institute was going to punish Wang Ming, and had been extremely nervous. She had actually still been kept in the dark about Wang Ming's decision to exempt him from punishment. Thus, after returning from the remains, Jai Yin forcefully dragged Wang Ming away, wanting him to admit his mistake as soon as possible to show that he had the right attitude and fight for leniency later. But Face hadn't been home for the past 2 days. He had gone to play games with Wei Ji. Wei Ji could be considered a pet trainer of some renown in Shanghai City. Now, he was with Loopy Toad all the time. They took the bus together, they went out together, and they were together all the time. As a result, Loopy Toad didn't have to sneak around when it took the bus like before. Even if it spoke human language on the bus, no one would find it strange. Wei Ji was a famous pet trainer. What was so strange about having a spirit dog that could talk? The only thing Loopy Toad needed to worry about was the Society of Saints. During the few days he had been away, President Fu of the Society of Saints and his assistant secretary, Han Jin, had paid him a visit. They wanted to hire Loopy Toad as class monitor of the Society of Saints Spirit Beast class with a high salary, but unfortunately, Loopy Toad had been at Wei Ji's place at the time, so Father and Mother Wang hadn't been able to directly make the decision for it. Hence, President Fu and his assistant went to Wei Ji's family apartment. However, they could not enter at all. For Loopy Toad, life in the human world was very comfortable, especially after it had adapted to its new body. Every day could be said to be relaxing and cozy. In a place like the Spirit Beast class, the Spirit Beasts all had masters behind them, and their identities were presumably not ordinary. If Loopy Toad went in carelessly, it might instead cause trouble for Wang Ling hm. Wang Ling had read all of this in Loopy Toad's diary. Dog 2's diary had always been open to the public, and had never been hidden. It had been placed under Wang Ling's bed. It had to be said that Buttface's handwriting was getting better and better. He used his paw to hold the pen, and the words he wrote were quite vigorous and powerful. Moreover, every word was in a standard square. From afar, it looked like the words were arranged neatly and orderly. It was as if it could be printed out. This was simply the gospel for people with OCD. Wang Ling didn't rest that night, but was busy thinking about what had happened at the summer camp. He had indeed gained a lot from this summer camp, but there had also been a lot of trouble. How to deal with the aftermath was a big problem. First of all, the 2 young masters of disabled elders senior high school, Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng, definitely wouldn't give up looking for him. These 2 people were very influential in Shanghai City, and were like ticking time bombs. He had to think of a way to make arrangements after that. Of course, compared with Li Mingyao and Zhou Yuzheng's troubles, the head of state was a bigger problem. Although Wang Ling hadn't directly attracted the head of state's attention this time, on the way back from the summer camp, everyone had received a notice that they would be going for a quarantine checkup next Monday. This quarantine was for all the teachers and students who were going to the summer camp this time. It didn't take a genius to know that the head of state had definitely discovered something. Furthermore, he was no longer just suspecting that there was a mysterious expert among the teachers. Since they had to be on guard, they had to be on guard in advance, otherwise they would be caught unprepared, which would be throwing themselves into disarray. Of course, apart from these troubles, Wang Ling's harvest from the summer camp this time was related to the domain of the gods. The domain of the gods indeed existed, because ever since he was young, Wang Ling had dreamed countless times about a very vague immortal island, but he couldn't remember what it was at all. Could that place be the domain of the gods? Or was it related to the domain of the gods? But for now, the information that Wang Ming and Audiobook had obtained from Devil King was still quite limited. Everything could only be discussed after Little Silver finished looking at the black box that Devil King had given him. Wang Ling cupped his chin in his hand as he pondered. Then, he knocked on the ground. He had specially told Mother Wang not to erase the heavenly Tao array he had set up in his room last time, so that it would be easier to use later. So Wang Ling just knocked on the ground. A moment later, the heavenly Tao incarnation of the golden 3-inch man appeared in the center of the array. What do you want this time? The golden 3-inch man was scared when he saw Wang Ling. Then he looked at the ground and realized that this was still the same array that had summoned him the last time, and was instantly speechless. He was the heavenly Tao. Chapter 789. The golden 3-inch man, who was the embodiment of heavenly Tao, really wanted to cry, but he always felt very powerless in front of Wang Ling. He had been summoned here again and again this month, and it wasn't to trade resources or anything like that, but to ask about secrets. These secrets were all secrets of the heavens. The most important thing was that it was one thing to trade for secrets of the heavens, but who would use crispy noodle snacks to make a trade? It was all his father's fault for using crispy noodle snacks to make a trade with the youngster in front of him back then, which had created this true devil. Speak, what's the matter? The golden 3-inch man sighed as he completely accepted reality. Wang Ling was rummaging through his drawer. He actually didn't have many crispy noodle snacks left, and he was actually very reluctant to give them away. So he had just been rummaging through expired crispy noodle snacks. The flagship store had a recycling service for expired crispy noodle snacks, and Wang Ling was a privileged gold card user, so the flagship store could even collect them at his doorstep. But then Wang Ling thought that he should leave some expired crispy noodle snacks for heavenly Tao. So before the summer camp had started, Wang Ling had used his privileged doorstep service to get Loopy Toad to help him with the exchange. But what he got in return were expired crispy noodle snacks. A complete crispy noodle snack pack could be exchanged for 3 expired crispy noodle snacks. The golden 3-inch man was blank at this scene, and then immediately stretched out his hand. Young hero, please wait. Wang Ling turned his face away. The golden 3-inch man, actually, you don't have to use crispy noodle snacks to make a trade. We only provide a loan service here. You can ask questions first, and then exchange them later with a handwritten copy. That good? Wang Ling's eyes lit up when he heard this. This heavenly Tao was indeed very conscientious. Wang Ling sighed in his heart. But the problem was that he had already prepared expired crispy noodle snacks. It would be a pity not to use them. Perfect, I have 3 questions. Wang Ling spoke lightly, and then presented the 3 expired crispy noodle snacks. The golden 3-inch man was startled. Past, expired? Wang Ling raised his eyebrows and stared at the heavenly Tao as he said firmly telepathically, I don't make a deal with you based on what you want, but on what I have. The golden 3-inch man was about to cry. Let's begin. Wang Ling stared at the golden 3-inch man. The little golden man wanted to cry but had no tears. A golden scroll appeared in his hand. This is the Book of Heavenly Mysteries, a golden scroll specially used to record the mysteries of heaven. You can write a question on this Book of Heavenly Mysteries, and the answer will naturally appear on it. The Book of Heavenly Mysteries was a supreme magic tool that recorded all the secrets of the Great Tao. It was an existence that surpassed the natural fate of heaven and earth, so it was naturally more powerful than world-defying magic tools. Ordinary people had to pay a price for prying into the secrets of the heavenly Tao. All the secrets sealed in the heavenly secret vault could be found in the Book of Heaven's Secret. Of course, these secrets had to be related to the Heaven's Way. There were still a lot of useless questions, such as what so-and-so liked to eat, what could be used against him, and so on. If these people did not have a strong connection with the heavenly Tao itself, then it would be useless to ask them. According to the laws of the heavenly Tao, the price of spying on the Heaven's Legacy Vault was as follows. 1. Prying into the secrets of heaven requires an equal price in exchange, and if necessary, the price is your life. 2. For Rule 1, if you have to pay the price of your life after obtaining the answer, the questioner will turn to dust within 48 hours and disappear completely. 3. If the person prying into the secrets of heaven is an extremely evil person, they will not be able to reincarnate after death. 4. After obtaining the answer, the person prying into the secrets of heaven must keep the secrets of heaven secret. If they leak the secrets of heaven, they will be punished by heavenly Tao by lightning and will never be able to reincarnate. 5. The person prying into the secrets of heaven must cultivate more than 100 heavenly Tao, or obtain more than 3 outer Tao. 6. The person prying into the secrets of heaven can consume an equal amount of their lifespan to reduce the price of their offerings. 7. Heavenly Tao reserves the right to explain everything. 8. Those on the heavenly Tao whitelist are not subject to the above rules, and Wang Ling happened to be on the heavenly Tao whitelist. Hence, the golden 3-inch man had never been able to do anything about Wang Ling. If someone else wanted to pry into the secrets of heaven, nothing could be more tragic than paying the price with their life. Wang Ling just had to hand in the homework he didn't want, or even the expired crispy noodle snacks. With privilege, you could do whatever you wanted. Helpless, he could only accept it. What was the saying again? The heavenly Tao reincarnated, whoever Wang Ling spared. The bitter fruit that had been sown back then was finally being borne out by them. Thus, when Wang Ling wrote down the question he wanted to ask in the Book of Heavenly Secrets and raised his head again, he saw 2 streams of tears flowing down the golden 3-inch man's blurry face. He was actually crying. Wang Ling didn't understand. What an amiable person he was. The little golden man wiped his tears and put away the 3 packets of expired crispy noodle snacks in front of him. Although it was already a privilege for Wang Ling to exchange his handwritten exercise books for resources, these 3 packets of expired snacks really weren't as good as handwritten exercise books. Your question has already been received by the Heavenly Secrets Warehouse. You'll need to wait about 3 or 4 minutes for the answer to appear in the Book of Heavenly Secrets. The golden 3-inch man rolled up the Book of Heavenly Secrets again and put it in front of Wang Ling. Waiting for 3 or 4 minutes was just enough time for a song. Suddenly, the little golden man had an idea, and decided to play a song for Wang Ling. Listen, this song. The little golden man just clapped his hands, and a melodious, 3-dimensional voice instantly filled the room. The prelude to the beautiful song rang out. Wang Ling, this is the little golden man, this is the heavenly Tao songstress singing. Each of us heavenly Tao has a different task. When many cultivators pass away in meditation, a lantern will appear in front of their eyes, and they will also hear melodious music, which is the heavenly Tao songstress singing silently behind their backs. Thus, the heavenly Tao songstress's voice isn't something that ordinary people can hear. Her voice has a myriad of variations, and is a collection of the most beautiful voices in the entire dimensional universe. Every voice can be studied to imitate a musical instrument, so the heavenly Tao songstress can sing as she sings. Wang Ling, At that moment, the heavenly Tao songstress, who had countless voices, had already finished singing the prelude. The song officially began, always asking for things from me, but never saying thank you. It wasn't until I grew up that I realized that crispy noodle snacks were cheap. Every time I made a deal, I pretended to be relaxed, smiling and saying, let's make a deal, I'll give you the expired snacks. The little golden man. So, is there anything you want to say? Wang Ling, it sounds good. The little golden man had already completely given up on resisting Wang Ling. Forget it, if it's expired, then so be it. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.